Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, am I the jerk for refusing to let my stepdaughter live with us? I, 28 female, have been married to my husband who's 42 for 2 years, together for 4. He has 3 kids from a previous marriage, Lucas who's 18, Lily who's 16, and Kayla who's 13. While I don't dislike his kids, I don't want kids of my own, and I made this very clear to him when we dated. This wasn't an issue because he only gets his kids for 1 weekend a month because they live far away from us. I made it very clear that I didn't want to take care of his kids apart from the occasional weekend. For the past 4 years, I've tried my best to be a good stepmother, and I've built a good relationship with my stepson Lucas and stepdaughter Kayla, but I'm unable to build a relationship with Lily. I've tried to take her out for girls' days, shopping sprees, and fun outings. She either refuses to go or complains the whole time. The last straw was when I got her something from her wish list last Christmas, a bracelet that she wanted, and she threw it away, saying that I got her the wrong one and I was too poor to understand the difference. She then accused me of only marrying her dad for his money. I usually don't let her comments get to me, but this was the last straw. After this, I stopped trying to interact with her and maintained my distance. The truth is, I didn't marry my husband for his money. We both work in high-paying tech jobs, but I inherited a lot from my parents. I even agreed to pay for part of Lucas' tuition. Anyways, Lily and Kayla want to move to a better school next year. The school is closer to our home than their mother's, so my husband said that they should live with us. I don't mind living with Kayla, but I don't want to be around Lily. My husband goes to work 4 days a week while I work from home, so I'll constantly have to be around Lily, and I refuse to do that. I don't mind being around Kayla, but not Lily. I told my husband all of this, and he called me a jerk, and we've been fighting ever since. He says I need to step up as a stepmother, and I can't let a teenager get to me. Lily has been in tears, saying it's not fair that I want Kayla but not her, and her mother is on her side. So, am I the jerk? Edit. To all the people saying I signed up for this when I married a man with kids, my husband led me to believe that he never wanted full custody of them, and if anything were to happen to their mother, their aunt would get custody. He has never been close to his kids and has said that he regrets having them. Ouch. On the weekends they were with us, I spent more time with them than he did. His reaction has me blindsided. I have suggested therapy and family therapy, but my husband is very against it, so that's not an option. I've asked my husband to talk to Lily, but he doesn't want to get involved. If her behavior changes, even a little, I have no problem letting her live with us. But the fact that my husband and his ex refuse to talk to her about her behavior and the fact that I need to be around her all day is terrifying to me. Both of us come from a culture where it's normal to marry a man older and better settled, so our age gap didn't come as a shock to anyone. At the time of his first marriage, he was 23 while his ex was 18. Edit 2. My husband leaves for work at 8 a.m. and comes home at 8 p.m. The kids are in school from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., so I have to parent them alone from 3-ish to 8, and that's not something I want to do. When we got married, I said I wouldn't take on any parenting responsibilities, and I stand by it. He refuses to work from home like me or get home sooner. Edit 3. I didn't tell Lily or Kayla any of this. I told my husband, who told his ex, who told the kids. This was meant to be an adult conversation. I know how this information could hurt Lily. And for people saying I shouldn't have married a man with kids, I was led to believe by my family that he was the best I would get due to my age. Most women in my community are married by 21. We got to know each other and I fell in love with him, and he assured me he would support my career and I wouldn't have to take the typical role of a mother. I knew that if I didn't get married soon, my family would isolate me. I was coerced by my family and lied to by my husband. Some people are saying I'm not the jerk, others are saying I am. It's quite obvious that those saying I'm the jerk don't know much about other cultures. In my culture, and actually most cultures outside of the US and some European countries, kids or teenagers don't get to say whatever they want because they're hormonal or whatever. Not the jerk. You made your position known and your husband is attempting to strong-arm you and override it in your shared home. You might consider taking some of your hard-earned money and renting an apartment to work from and live in, not out of anger or revenge, but out of practicality. Yup, pack your bags, find alternative accommodation for yourself, leave, and start the divorce process. You will never be comfortable in this marriage. You're the jerk. Things change. The kids aren't going to magically disappear just because you or your husband decide you don't want them around. My wish for 2024 is for people to stop marrying parents if they don't want to deal with the kids. You were a fool to think that this was never a possibility. You married a man who has kids, so living with them was always a possibility. Yes, Lily needs to learn respect, but you need to accept that his kids will always be a part of your life. Your edits make me lean towards everyone sucks here because of your husband's attitude towards the issue. You're still not innocent though. You married a man knowing that he had 3 kids. Regardless of how often or not he had them, things can change at the drop of a hat. If their mom got sick, if there were issues at home, etc., you'd have to take them in. You can't pick and choose which kids you want there just because a teenager doesn't like you. They are hormonal at that age, going through so many changes, not to mention she'll probably be confused at the big age gap between you and her dad. The kid has every right to be upset that you're picking one over the other. I understand your reasons, but these are kids. He has every right to want his kids to live with him. In this scenario, you're the jerk. I do understand where you're coming from, but as a parent, I would put my kids before anyone, even my partner. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. I don't think people will ever learn to stop marrying parents if you don't want their kids to live with you. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter, who's facing homelessness, that only her and the baby can move in with me, but not her husband? The husband has lived in their apartment for a number of years. The owners recently sold it and the new ones are moving in, so my daughter and her husband have to move. The problem is, rent has gone up dramatically. The rent they're paying is $1,100 for a 1-bedroom, which I thought was a lot. But now that I'm trying to help them find a place, most are now going for around $2,000 a month or more. They can't afford that. My daughter knows that she is always welcome at my house. Granted, a baby complicates things. I wasn't happy about her having a baby. She's young, she just turned 22, but I would never deny her housing. However, I can't stand her husband. Let's just call him Aaron. I wouldn't invite Aaron over for dinner, let alone let him live with me. Aaron's in his mid-30s, criminal history, hair-trigger temper, chronically immature, and has one heck of a jealousy and possessive streak that has caused strain in their relationship, which I obviously do not approve of. Honestly, when she told me that she was pregnant, I finally thought we'd get rid of Aaron. I genuinely thought he's exactly the kind of man to ditch. They'd been on and off over and over since she was about 18 or 19. Alas, if anything, it made him cling to her tighter. They had a very rushed wedding, and this is their longest stint together without any breakups. Just over a year. There's still been the fair share of dramatics, of course, but I'm surprised they made it this far. Even so, I simply don't want to live with Aaron. I don't like him. I don't want him around me. I'd go above and beyond for my daughter and the baby. They can stay as long as they need, but not him. Obviously, this has created a rift between my daughter and I. She doesn't want to live separately from Aaron. I told her that she needs to figure out alternative arrangements. Well, their move-out date is rapidly approaching, the 15th of December, and they've still not been able to find a place, and she's panicking. She's been begging me to let them stay with me. I reiterated my terms. Aaron simply cannot stay here. This led to a lot of tears and some angry words, namely me being a jerk. I can genuinely see why she might think that, but I also have to think about myself and my own sanity. Update. I do believe because of my anger and frustration, I exaggerated Aaron's flaws in my post. Has he struggled with his temper? Yes, but I should not have described it as hair trigger. I've never thought of him as dangerous. I've never feared for my daughter's safety nor my own. I also described him as jealous and possessive, and while I do see some of those tendencies, he's never tried to restrict her movements or isolate her. She's always dealt with a tremendous amount of anxiety, especially when it comes to social situations. As much as I loathe to admit it, in this regard, he's been a wonderful cheerleader. He could keep her at home where she feels most secure, but he truly does encourage her to get out and be adventurous. As for his criminal history, it's all below the age of 24. He hasn't been in trouble with the law since. It still makes me uncomfortable, but I can admit that he's been stable. In all the time I've known him, he's had no issues holding down a job, paying his rent, etc. What bothers me the most is the age gap. I can't explain that away or change it. It is what it is. It makes me uncomfortable. Anyways, if posting here has shown me anything, it's that Aaron's not nearly as bad as I had built him up in my mind. So many people here are imagining he's a monster. He's just a guy. He means well and he's trying. He's still irritating, opinionated, immature, and talks too much. But he does try his best to take care of my daughter. He is a capable present father and loves being one. They are married and he has family. Lots of people have stated they are a unit. They come together or not at all. I've started to agree. It's for that reason I've decided to allow them all to stay with me while they figure things out. If she's adult enough to get pregnant and get married, she's also adult enough to figure things out. Either she accepts your terms, it's your house, or they can stay with friends or his family. Can't have it both ways. Not the jerk. OP. Unfortunately, that's not really how things work. I realize that even adults need help from time to time. Sometimes a lot of help, and that's okay. Heck, I need help occasionally too. For my own sanity, my helpfulness has its own limits, and I hope my daughter will eventually understand this. I realize they're in a tough spot. The vast majority of her friends live at home still, and the ones that don't live with multiple roommates and aren't in a position to help. Aaron, from what I've gathered, doesn't really have family beyond a brother in another province. I know he's done a lot of work on himself, so says my daughter, and has distanced himself a great deal from his former friends. I realize their options are extremely limited, but like I said, my ability to help has its limits. Not the jerk. It's your house and your life. You're being very generous in your offer. I get that she doesn't want to be separated from her husband, but just because he's working on himself doesn't wash away all of the hurt that he's caused. Stand strong and do not be guilted into this. Am I the jerk for going on a pre-planned and paid-for vacation after my boyfriend's father passed? My boyfriend, who's 30, and I, 28 female, have been dating for 4 years and have been living together for the past 18 months. Our lease is up at the end of this month, and we were hoping to have purchased a house by now, but that didn't happen. So we decided to just renew our lease and keep the house hunt going. I've also had a very stressful year career-wise, so this fall a few friends and I booked a girls' trip to Mexico for a yoga and wellness retreat. We're leaving next Thursday, and we're all really looking forward to it. This week, before Thanksgiving, my boyfriend's dad unexpectedly passed away. My boyfriend immediately flew out to be with his mom and siblings. He ended up staying there for Thanksgiving instead of coming home, which I completely understood. Due to the holiday and scheduling conflicts with other relatives, the funeral wasn't scheduled until the Friday after I leave for my trip. When he told me the date of the funeral, I reminded him that I would be gone. He asked me if there was any way I could reschedule the trip or get a refund, and I told him I would look into it. But the trip was booked through a group rate and was 100% non-refundable, and none of my friends wanted to go through the hassle of rescheduling, which sucks, but I get it. I saved a lot of money to take this trip and really needed the escape, and if I cancel, I don't get the money back at all. I explained all of this to my boyfriend, and he asked me what I was going to do. I apologized and told him that I think I'm going to go on the trip because I don't want that money to go away for nothing. All of this over the phone because he was still with his family and told me we would talk more when he got back. When he came home, we talked more about it, and I apologized so many times when I was explaining why I still was going on the trip. He seemed to understand and told me it was fine. But when I asked him when we were going to sign the papers to renew our lease, because I want that done before I leave, he said he's not doing that anymore. He said that he came back to figure some things out at work, and then he's flying back for the funeral and will be staying with his mom while they figure some things out. I asked him why he didn't talk to me about this first, and he said that he's talking to me about it right now. He said his mom needs help, so he's going to stay with her. I asked him what am I supposed to do about a place to live, and he told me to figure it out with my friends on our vacation. I told him that he's putting me in a bad situation and that he seemed fine with me going on the trip and missing the funeral. He said he wasn't going to beg me to cancel my trip and that I made that decision on my own, so he's making this decision on his own. I told him he's being a jerk and he should have talked to me about this first. He said I'm the one who prioritized drinking on a beach over being at his dad's funeral. So if anyone is a jerk here, it's me. You're the jerk. Your partner of 4 years lost their parent, and you think it's more important to go on a vacation? You showed your priorities. They aren't your relationship. I, 28 male, told my parents and siblings the truth, and I think it broke them. I, 28 male, had dinner over at my parents' house a week ago. At some point during the night, my mother started questioning me as to why I kicked my sister, who's 21, out of my house. She already knows the reasons to why, but she kept asking me to give her another chance. My father asked me to take on my sister. Originally, this was great as I travel a lot for work, so I had someone to take care of the house in my absence. She would effectively have lived alone as I am sometimes away 2 to 3 weeks out of a month. The only condition I put on her living with me was that she takes care of the house in my absence and cleans up after herself. A week after she moved in, I left for 3 weeks, and when I came back, the house was a mess. No clean cutlery, dishes, nothing. The pizza box and plates were still in the same position as when I left the house 3 weeks ago, and she was sitting on the couch with 6 plates of uneaten food stacked on each other. Some had started to grow mold. I asked her what's going on with the house, and she told me it's my house, my job to clean up. Why should she clean up? I told her, you're a grown woman. I never expected the house to be sparkling when I returned, but at least in the same condition as it was when I left. It wouldn't have hurt her to just clean up after herself. And again, she said, my house, my responsibilities. I just saw red. I snapped and told her to get her crap and get out of my house. And she laughed at me and said, this is your home, now get to cleaning. Everything was funny to her until I started to throw her crap outside. She started with the waterworks, and when that didn't work, she called my parents. I got a call from my father, and he asked what's going on, so I told him. I hung up the phone and sent him pictures of my house. He didn't even respond, only arrived 25 minutes later to pick up my sister, and he apologized to me. The story above was just my breaking point, but a lot of crap other than this has happened over the years. I'm always the last resort. Any issues someone has, they come to me. If someone needs money, I'm the one they can call. If they need a place to stay, they show up at my house. They need help with something, I'm the one. I've always had to sit on the back burner and just be the support for everyone in their time of need. And when I needed them, they weren't there, and I was told to be a man and sort it out. My parents have been great to my younger siblings, 4 kids in total. They have all stayed with me in the past, as well as rent-free with no contributions at all. I didn't have a childhood. I became the 3rd parent in the household. Everything regarding my siblings fell on me. If I had to write down everything I have done or been through for my siblings and parents, I'd be writing this post for days. I don't really blame my parents, as circumstances were a lot different from when I was a kid to my siblings. But the difference in the way we were all raised is evident. My siblings are entitled jerks, and it's my parents' fault for how they raised them. After my mom's constant questions, I snapped when she said I'm being heartless. I just unleashed everything onto them. I was ranting for about 30 minutes while they sat there in silence with their eyes getting bigger as the minutes passed. I finished with them, I'm just tired of all this crap. I'm the backup for everyone in this family. I can see the pain on my parents' faces as they can't even look me in the eyes anymore. Every time I miss a phone call from one of them, my phone blows up as they think that I did something. I fell asleep on the couch yesterday as I worked 36 hours straight and I was tired. During my sleep, my father tried to call me, and as I was asleep, I didn't answer his calls. I got woken up as the police kicked down my door when my parents showed up at my house after I didn't answer them, and they saw me laying on the couch. The knocking and banging didn't wake me up. That was the first time I saw my father cry, as they thought that I had done something I shouldn't have. I think I broke my parents, as my youngest sister told me that they just exist in their house and don't even talk to each other anymore. The house is cold, and she can hear both my parents just burst out crying sometimes, especially during the night. I just want to know if there's some way that I can move on with this. You don't want to lose access to your younger siblings, understandable, but you can still say no. No, I will not loan you money. No, I will not give you money. I will not do that for you. You cannot live with me. People can have relationships with each other that are not conditional or transactional. Tell them what behaviors from them you will and will not accept in the relationship and stick to it. Ex-fiancee of 8 years broke up with me via text 3 years ago. Now she's trying to rejoin our circle of mutual friends. Me and a girl who I'll just call Jessica were a couple for 8 years and were engaged for 3 years. I met her through a mutual friend in my group of friends. We ended up hitting it off pretty quickly as our dorky and nerdy hobbies aligned really well. I personally fully expected to marry her and spend the rest of my life with her. In early 2016, her job offered her an amazing opportunity to temporarily work 4 months in the company's satellite office in New Zealand. She was an environmental engineer, to temporarily manage and lead a new team. It was very sudden, and I was not really happy with the idea, but she really wanted this chance and opportunity, so off she went. I flew out to visit her about 2 months after. Only when I arrived at the airport, I got a text message from her. The message was short and more or less consisted of, she was sorry, but after thinking it through, she thinks it would be best if we went our separate ways from now on. She then completely blocked me on almost every single form of social media, cell phone, etc. I was confused, devastated, and became an absolute wreck. I remember completely breaking down at the airport. I spent the next 4 days living at a motel, basically trying to get into contact with her in any shape or form. She had apparently blocked every one of our circle of friends. Even her close friends from our circle of friends were shocked, confused, and basically lost. Even her parents were extremely confused when I called them. Her dad, who I was extremely close with, we coached pee-wee hockey together and played a lot of beer league for hockey together, refused to believe it at first. I was a mess for a solid year, but my close circle of friends managed to drag me out of my hole along with some therapy. Her best friends became close friends to me. About a year ago, she invited some of her old close friends to her wedding among a bunch of other people from our group. No one went, and I quickly found out, which hurt me even more. Over a year ago, I started dating one of her old friends, as me and her had gotten close over the last 2 years or so. She felt quite hurt when Jessica basically ghosted her. Unfortunately, there was some awkwardness because she fully knew I was not fully over my ex, but she has been a supportive and amazing person, and I'm extremely happy with her. Life was going great for me. Then in December, Jessica apparently moved back home after divorcing a few months after getting married. I don't know much, and I don't want to know. However, she's making this hugely concentrated effort to reconnect with people in our old friend group, which is resulting in some very conflicted feelings for people. Last week, I found out that Jessica and some of my friends have started playing Dungeons & Dragons, which frankly made me feel horrible. Part of me just wants to move on from this, but I'm struggling hard. While my significant other has been extremely supportive, I just feel numb and don't really know what to do. Today, Jessica sent me a long Facebook message basically apologizing for what she did and asking to be friends. I didn't respond and I blocked her. I told my significant other and I just felt like I was going to break down. Right now, my significant other is saying that she's worried about me and keeps asking me what I want to do. My significant other confessed that Jessica had sent her a similar message a few weeks ago and she told her off. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I can't order my friends to not be friends with her. I just feel like a mess and I'm struggling with this as I feel like I'm a teenager dealing with stupid drama again. Update. I sat down with my significant other and I explained to her how awesome she is, and I explained how I don't have any romantic feelings for my ex at all. All I really have is a lot of painful and hurtful memories. I also asked her what should I do, and she suggested that I respond and tell her off to get closure to some degree. So I did that. I told her I don't want to be friends anymore. I want nothing to do with her. I explained how badly she hurt me. I'm happy right now, and I just want her to leave me and my friends alone. She took it well, apologized one more time, and then basically said goodbye forever. That was honestly a huge load off my shoulders. I then went and told our group of friends and explained how much she hurt me and how I'd rather we not start adding her to our gaming sessions. Unfortunately, I ended up losing a bunch of friends and have irreparably caused a lot of damage to our friend group. Many of them sided with me, but a bunch of them took the stance of, "You have no right to tell me who I can be friends with," among other complaints. A few people were very angry and told me I'm being a terrible person as my ex is trying to repent and deal with pain of her divorce. It was confusing and frankly just made everything more of a mess. In the end, a bunch of us ended up getting booted out of our friend group. I don't really know what's going to happen, but it really hurt me to see some people that I've known for years and even helped me get through it the first time suddenly take her side. Am I the jerk for refusing to be my friend's alibi so he can cheat on his girlfriend? I, 21 male, have known my friend Matt, who's 21, since we started college. We're in the same program and have been roommates since day one. Overall, I'd say Matt is a great guy. However, he has a terrible tendency to cheat. Throughout college, I think Matt had 5 to 7 different girlfriends, and each of those relationships ended because he would cheat. Back in January, he started dating his current girlfriend, Jen, who's 21, and has been with her far longer than any of the previous relationships. From my interactions with Jen, I know she's a wonderful person. She's very polite, beautiful, and clearly devoted to Matt. For the past few weeks, Matt has also developed a close relationship with his anatomy lab partner, Cindy, who's 21. It's become pretty clear to me and my other housemates, Kyle, Robert, and Omar, that there is some romantic relationship between them. We've even met Cindy as she came by our house a few times. Long story short, Matt told me and the other guys that things between him and Cindy are moving fairly quickly and that Jen is completely in the dark about this. He told us that, for the foreseeable future, he'll be spending a few nights hanging out at Cindy's place. Here's the issue. Jen and her roommates don't live that far from us, about a 7-minute walk, so there's a good chance she'll come by looking for him, according to Matt. Therefore, he wants us all to make excuses for his absence and potentially reassure Jen that he isn't up to anything bad. Kyle and Robert are fully on board with this as they consider it the bro code. Omar is fully against this, and while he has not said he'd tell Jen, he has refused to lie for Matt and has been urging him to end things with Cindy. I would say I'm more neutral. I don't think what Matt's doing is appropriate, but I don't think it's my place to tell Matt how to manage his relationships. I tell him that while I wouldn't seek Jen out and tell her what's going on, I wouldn't lie to her either about where he is, and instead just say that I don't know. We all argued about this for a while, and the general gist of things is that Kyle, Robert, and Matt all think I'm being a bit of a jerk for not being more cooperative. Aside from this, I don't think there's really much I can do. Moving somewhere else is both economically and logistically unfeasible, so I think trying to avoid stirring the pot is my best bet. Am I the jerk? Update. I'll start by saying that Jen found out last night. Like Matt predicted, she came over to our house Tuesday evening. I saw her pretty quickly since I was also coming back from buying some food. She asked me if I knew where Matt was, and I said I didn't know, because I genuinely didn't at that time. She mentioned how he wasn't responding to her texts and that she was worried about him, and I felt pretty bad hearing that. Kyle, who was inside, came out at this point and said that Matt was in his anatomy lab and then reassured her that he'd contact her once he was finished. She didn't seem entirely satisfied with that answer, but thanked us anyway and left. When she was gone, Kyle told me that Matt was actually on a date with Cindy. Since Matt sometimes brings Cindy over, he'll text the house group chat before they come over to ensure that Jen isn't around. He did this on Tuesday night, and Kyle did alert him that Jen had stopped by looking for him, so he stayed over with Cindy on Tuesday night. Wednesday evening, only Omar and I are home. Kyle was with his own girlfriend, and Robert had an exam. Around 7 p.m., we got a text on the group chat from Matt saying he plans on bringing Cindy over around 8:30, and he asked if Jen came by. I told him that I hadn't seen her, and things went on as usual. I'll add that Omar has refused to respond to these specific text messages from Matt, so there was an expectation on me to clarify if Jen was here or not. A little after 8 p.m., Jen comes by with one of her friends, Carly, who's 21. They asked us where Matt was, since Jen hadn't been seeing him a lot lately. Before I could even say anything, Omar told them to come back after 8:30 and Matt should be home. They left, and I did argue with Omar about his decision to tell them to come back, since it was inevitably going to cause drama, but he didn't care. I did text Matt and told him about Jen potentially returning, but since he was driving, he didn't read the message. At this stage, I gave up trying to contact Matt and went up to my room. A little after 8:30, Matt walked in with Cindy, and not long afterward, Jen and Carly returned. Omar let them in. Long story short, there was a lot of Jen yelling and Matt lying and apologizing. I didn't bother coming down since I could hear it all from my room. After about 10 minutes of this, Jen and Carly left. Matt sent Cindy home after this and was pretty upset at what happened. I reminded him that I sent him text messages, which he now saw, and Omar played dumb, acting like he didn't see Matt's message about him asking if Jen was home, but confirmed to him that he had told Jen to come back after the first time she came because he didn't think Matt was dumb enough to go out with Cindy 2 nights back to back. Robert and Kyle came home after this point, and I filled them in on what happened. There was definitely some tension in the house this morning, as Matt thinks this all could have been avoided had Omar been more helpful. He also partially blames Cindy for wanting to come over more often. Overall, Matt doesn't really seem to care that Jen found out and broke things off with him. He said that he'll try apologizing one more time, as he does prefer Jen to Cindy, and if she doesn't accept, he'll leave things as they are. As for Cindy, Matt has already told Kyle, Robert, and me this morning that he plans on ending things with her after the December exam season. He says that he wants to be single again by New Year's so he can have a fresh start. Kyle and Robert think this is pretty hilarious, considering how much trouble he got into to be with her. Things have ended more smoothly than I thought, and I've made it abundantly clear to Matt to keep me out of his relationships from now on. I have also asked Carly how Jen was holding up this morning as we share class together. As expected, Jen was very upset about the entire ordeal, and she and her friends consider everyone at our house, aside from Omar, to be complicit and awful. Kyle texted the group chat. His girlfriend knows, and she isn't happy. My Karen daughter told me to not expect her to take care of me in my old age, so now I'm cutting her off financially. I'm 44, male. My daughter, who's 23, doesn't get along with my wife. We've been married for 2 years now. My wife and I got together when she was at college. My ex-wife doesn't like her, and I have a feeling that's the biggest part of it. My daughter can't really seem to point to what she doesn't like, just general, "She's stuck up," or "She always has an attitude." My daughter recently graduated, and we've been helping her pay bills here and there as she looked for a job in her field. We usually give her around $1,000 a month. Recently, she was at our house, and her and my wife got into an argument over my daughter leaving a mess in the kitchen. As I tried to defuse things, my daughter started screaming that I was a jerk for siding with my wife and that she was going to remember this when I'm older and I need her. This floored me. At this point, I just walked away. After giving it some thought, I realized that I don't want my future to be in the hands of someone else, especially someone who intends to lord that over me. I would never place the expectation on her to take care of me, but I do feel like since she has made it clear that any support from her in my old age would come with strings, it makes more sense to invest that money so that my later years will be paid for. So, would I be the jerk if I redirect that $1,000 a month into my retirement account versus helping my daughter? Not the jerk. Tell her you need to divert the funds you are giving her to ensure you're cared for as you age. So your daughter made a mess, your wife told her to clean it up, and she refused, and then she got upset about it? You raised a winner there, OP. Not the jerk. Not the jerk, but $1,000 a month would buy you a pretty nice long-term care insurance policy. I'm just saying. Not the jerk. I don't want or expect anybody to take care of me in my old age, but her general attitude would be the end of any financial support. You simply do not bite the hand that feeds you. First time I dressed up for a double date and my friend didn't like it. My friend Joel, who's 20, asked me, 21 male, to join him for a double date with Jean, who's 20, and her friend Sam, who's 19. Joel got a date with Jean, but she wanted to make it a double date as she wanted to introduce Sam to the dating scene in a more friendly kind of way. I agreed to it, but Sam wasn't amused by the idea of me being her date, but agreed because she was happy with just the experience. Why? Well, me and Joel are two totally different types of guys. He's the charming and athletic guy, while I'm the chubby and more reserved one. Doesn't help that I'm balding this early in life. The times I have met her at university has been while I'm wearing the same clothes. I have a set of clothes only for university, sort of like a self-imposed uniform. Every day is different, but I repeat weekly. So yesterday I got my hair cut as low as possible without going into shaving, fixed my beard, and I have to say I was looking mighty fine. Got out my brand new clothes. Now today we had our double date after 2 p.m. I arrived late, but only by 5 minutes. Joel was texting me like crazy until I arrived holding a rose for Sam. I'm a bit corny, but I thought it would be a nice gesture. Joel wasn't happy for some reason. Jean looked surprised, but Sam, she smiled widely and her eyes sparkled a bit. We start our date and Sam and I are having a bit of a blast. We decided to go out bowling before we go for ice cream in recommendation from Sam. We got along, but not really enough to say that I like her more than a friend. Maybe a second date, solo this time, would be nice. As we're hanging out, I could feel glances from Joel and small smiles from Jean. I know Jean is smiling because Sam is having fun, but I didn't know why Joel was so angry with me. After the date, Joel unloaded on me, how I was cringe for bringing Sam a rose, that I was there to entertain Sam, not distract Jean from him, that I dressed too formal and too fancy. I was only wearing a white shirt, flannel overshirt, and jeans with my Converse. He also said I should have stayed at home if I was going to act like I did at the date. I just talked with Sam, shared a meal with her, and went to get her favorite ice cream from her favorite store. He was there, and Jean was 100% on board with the ideas. I barely talked with Jean. He had all the playing field for himself. Not my fault Jean was more interested in seeing her friend happy. Sounds like he was annoyed that you showed him up on the date. He's probably used to attention and thought being next to you would make him look better. Sorry, just going based off your description. Girls care way more about thoughts and effort than just attractive. That's why you are getting the attention of both of them. OP. I knew from the start he was planning to use me to look better, but I wasn't expecting him to be rude about his date with Jane and blaming it on me. Maybe the only reason Jean agreed to date your friend was so she'd have an excuse to get Sam out on a date with somebody, and Joel is salty about it. Don't worry about it. It sounds like you and Sam had a nice time, and Jean is happy that Sam enjoyed herself. Joel is being insecure. You absolutely should ask Sam to go out solo, even if you decide she's not for you romantically. It sounds like you guys get along well and could be great friends. OP. I think I will ask her out. She mentioned she was more into retro gaming, and we have an old school arcade close to campus. Update. Let's start with my friend Joel. I explained to him what had happened and how it made me feel, and he apologized. A bit of a forced apology, but it's been 2 weeks, and he's actually changed a bit. I explained that he should be more attentive with his dates and took it to heart. He is still the same guy, but now he at least tries to actually connect with his date. Jean, well, not much. We started hanging out, but I don't know how much happened with her and Joel. Just that it didn't work out. I will take that. Now Sam, well, I asked her out for another date, this time a solo date, and she said yes with a big grin on her face. We went to the arcade and we had a blast, maybe too much. That night I returned to my apartment at 3 a.m. and exhausted. That was a night filled with firsts. With that said, we hit it off. I thought we wouldn't click, but after a few drinks and karaoke, we really made her loosen up a bit, and we talked for another 3 hours on our second date, had 2 more dates, and now we are officially dating. I showed her my last post, and she was amused by all of your replies. I threw a low blow at my wife, and now she's barely talking to me. Please help. Me, 29 male, and my wife, Ali, who's 27, we've been together for 6 years and married for 3. We met in college, and at first, my mom, who was always a stay-at-home mom, was worried that my wife wouldn't make a good housewife. However, as the years went on, she saw how my Ali and I made such a beautiful partnership. She saw how we supported each other through college and grad school, job hunting, financial issues, health problems, and more. She saw how I would pick up the slack when Ali was busy and how Ali did the same for me. We also split our chores at home. My mom now absolutely adores her. Since I only have brothers and I'm the only married one, she thinks of her as the daughter she never had. Now on to the issue. This past Monday, I was just having a terrible day. The kind of day where everything goes wrong. I got a flat tire on my way to work. I was late to work. My boss yelled at me. I dropped my lunch. I left my wallet at home. It was just an awful day. I got home and I was starving. Ali was cooking dinner. She seemed to have been anxious because when she is, she starts talking a lot and really fast, which I normally find sweet and endearing, but not that day. So she starts going on and on about her day. I just wanted her to get done with dinner. So out of nowhere, I just yelled, "Do you ever stop talking? Boy, was Mom ever right?" She asks, right about what? Instead of keeping my mouth shut, I tell her about my mom's concerns about her not making a good housewife. Her eyes rolled up with tears, and she stopped talking, finished cooking dinner, and went straight to the shower and then to bed. Now she wakes up before me and leaves breakfast and lunch ready, comes home and leaves dinner ready, and goes straight to shower and bed. She doesn't want to talk to me or watch TV or anything. If I ask or say anything, she gives me 1 or 2-word responses. She doesn't even look angry at me, just defeated. I don't know how to fix this. I feel like flowers and chocolates won't cut it here. Plus, I don't even know why I said that, because my mom doesn't even have those concerns anymore. Please help. Update. I want to clarify and answer some questions. Pregnancy. Ali is not pregnant. Before getting married, we decided to wait until our careers were established for 2 years before we started trying for a baby. That would be next year. We're both very careful. Plus, I asked and she said she wasn't. Her doing all of the chores. She does not do all of the chores. Before we moved in together, we made a list of all the chores that needed to be done. Then we flipped a coin and chose the chore we wanted. Then we alternated on choosing the rest of them. She chose the first one, which was cooking. She cooks and I clean the kitchen. She grocery shops and I put the groceries away and so on. So even with the fight, she kept doing her chores and I kept doing mine. Although I would fully understand if she stopped doing them altogether. Me apologizing. I did try to apologize multiple times, but she said she didn't want to hear it. I just wanted to give her space, but should have tried harder. I read every single comment and message. It was hard, but I asked for advice. I 1000% got what I deserved. Now, on to what I've done to begin fixing this mess that I've made. As some of you suggested, I wrote a heartfelt letter explaining myself and sincerely apologizing and begging her to speak to me whenever she felt comfortable. She said she would go to the guest room, and I said no, that I would go there because this fight was entirely my fault and would only return if and when she allowed me to or felt comfortable. I called my mom and let her know what I did. She rightfully tore me a new one, then came by the next day with some gifts for Ali. She apologized for ever feeling that way and assured her that she didn't feel that way now, that she truly loves her like a daughter. They spoke more, but I wasn't privy to that conversation. As some of you suggested, I made an appointment with a counselor so I can learn how to properly deal with my anger and not lash out at innocent people. On Reddit's suggestion as well, I printed out a list of marriage counselors in the area who accept our health insurance. I gave her the list and said that if she's willing to go with me, all she has to do is choose a name and I'll do all the legwork. She said she's willing to go and she chose a name. She works in the mental health field and chose someone who is reputable in our area. She already sees her own therapist and is working through this with her, I assume. I was able to talk to her and she said that she was really hurt by what I said, that she was questioning what my family, especially my mom, and what I thought of her as a wife and a person. Like all the memories with my family are tainted now. Were they pretending? Was it just my mom? What are they saying behind her back during special occasions? If we have kids, will they think she's a bad mom too? When my mom helps her with something, is it to be nice or because she thinks she's not capable? That she was angry I didn't trust her with those concerns earlier in the relationship, so she could either address them with my mom or even see what I thought as well, because she might have made a different choice about marrying into a family that had doubts about her. She also said that she was already anxious about a hard day at work, and I yelled out of nowhere. She told me that if I had just communicated to her that I had a bad day and was hungry, she would have just made me a snack and told me to chill while dinner was ready. But instead, I just lashed out. Or if I had texted her earlier, she would have ordered me lunch or given me her card number so I could order something for myself. Also said it was about teaching me a lesson about what a quiet housewife looks like and that it's obviously not something I want. And that if it is, she's obviously not someone I'm going to get it from. So to make a choice about what I want, I told her I want to be with her. I don't want a housewife. I want her as my partner for the rest of my life. I just felt like a complete jerk because I just had to communicate and she would have been there for me. I had no right to hurt her. She was a partner and I was a jerk. As you guys also suggested, I've been taking over her chores as well as I can because my cooking is definitely not as good as hers and spoiling her with her favorite things and foods. I've also been doing extra things like drawing baths, serving her favorite juice, lighting candles, and playing her favorite crime podcast so she can relax when she comes home from work. I'm going to keep working together and see what happens. I obviously messed up here. I'm trying to fix it and I'm hopeful. It's not all unicorns and rainbows, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to repair and rebuild what I ruined. If it ends up not working, then I'll know because I was a big jerk who didn't properly communicate and didn't keep his mouth shut. As someone whose wife has at times had anger issues and said things that were out of line, I can tell you with absolute certainty that this woman will never forget what he said to her. Forgive, sure, but not forget. I'm glad OP is making up for it, but in the case they eventually divorce, he will still have deserved it. If I was in OP's reach, I would have torn him a new one. Boy, have you lost your mind, cause I'll help you find it. What you looking for? Ain't nobody gonna help you out there. Jesus could come through that door. He's not going to help you. Wow, the level of pathetic here is insane. You were in a bad mood, said some stuff that hurt her feelings. You apologized and she needs to get over it. Instead, she's got you worshiping the ground she walks on. Men who have a little respect for themselves don't bow down to someone with a chip on their shoulder like your wife. When did men lose their ability to be men and instead start acting like complete wimps? Edit. I'm a woman. My husband and I have both said hurtful things throughout our 20 years together. But guess what? We move on. We get over it, like adults are supposed to. And if my husband ever acts as pathetic as this guy is, I would make him go to the doctor and get his hormones checked. No man with proper testosterone levels should ever be acting this sad and pathetic. Job interviewer ghosted me and then had one of his employees tell me to go home, so I did. While I do have a job already, I thought it would be worthwhile to see what else is out there. A week ago, I found a job posting on Indeed. It sounded like a good gig, paid good, and is work that I like doing. The only downfall is that it's a 35-minute drive out of town. I had a good conversation with the business owner on the website, and he seemed like a good guy. I explained that I work every day from 7 a.m. to 3:10 p.m., and he understood that there's a bit of a commute to his shop. He asked me if I could meet up with him at 3:30. I told him that it isn't possible as I was done at 3:10 and can't do a 35-minute drive in under 20 minutes. I explained that I would be leaving town at 3:10 to come and see him, and that I would see him when I get there, somewhere around 3:40ish. So I gave him my phone number just in case something were to change, and we left on a good note. I drove rather fast, getting there at 3:37, happy that I got there in under 35 minutes. I show up, business closed. I figured he was somewhere nearby, so I get out of my vehicle to search. I look over to my left to see two teenagers moving some materials. I approached them and asked them where their boss was while explaining that I had a meeting with him. One of them informs me that he just left a few minutes ago, but could call him back to come meet me. He calls his boss, saying who I am. The teenager chuckles, says, "Okay," with a "you gotta be kidding me" look on his face, then he hangs up. Teenager tells me, "He says to go home." I asked him to repeat himself. He said go home. This time he's laughing uncomfortably. I now have another 35-minute drive ahead of me, and I'm very irritated. I decided to leave as his boss instructed, but instead of driving the gravel driveway back onto the highway, the way I came in from, I decided to leave him a present to remember me by. Some donut tire skid marks on his front lawn as I tore out of there. 30 minutes after that, he felt the need to reach out to me and introduce himself via a private number, but I let it go to voicemail as I was driving, which upon listening to later on, further proved to me that all his negative Google reviews were more than likely all true, and that this person isn't someone to do business with anyways. I'm 31, female. My husband, who's 34, bought me the wrong jewelry for our anniversary. I know the title makes me sound entitled, but hear me out. We had our wedding anniversary this week, but we delayed celebrating until this weekend. We do traditional gifts for anniversaries, and this year is flowers and fruit. He's not great with gifts and asked for ideas last month, and I sent him a link to an Etsy shop that makes birth flower jewelry, and I told him I'd like something with our son's birth flower. I also let him know he could just get me flowers or anything else, and that would be fine as well. For his gift, I picked up chocolate-covered strawberries, wine, and went to a fancy cheese shop to get some fruit-infused cheeses, meat, etc. to make a really nice charcuterie spread for tonight. I'm going to create a picnic in our living room, and I think it's going to be really cute. I also got him a card and wrote a heartfelt message, just for reference. I assumed that he had figured my gift out before our anniversary, so imagine my surprise when I opened a Prime box and found a jewelry box. I didn't open it, but it was labeled birth flower necklace, so it was obvious. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed, but I'm not sure if I'm being unfair and could use some perspective. 1. If he ordered the gift via Prime, that means that he didn't order it until after the actual day of our anniversary had passed. 2. The box was labeled with my birth flower, not my son's, which is not what I wanted. 3. The box and labeling looks very cheap, and looking on Amazon, I think he ordered a low-quality piece. Think Chinese Amazon front, less than $20. When we were younger, I would wear jewelry like this, and it would always fall apart, color my skin, and/or tarnish quickly. I'm a bit upset. I spent a significant amount of consideration and money on his gift, and he totally flubbed mine in a way that specifically seems very uncaring. He's going to be giving me the gift tonight, so I have about 4 hours to figure out how I'm going to respond. I don't want to ruin our plans with a fight, but I'd like to gently tell him that I'd rather he orders something I will actually wear. Or should I just thank him and not say anything and just not wear the gift? Am I being entitled? Update. Based on some of the feedback saying that my gift was actually for both of us, I didn't set out the chocolate-covered strawberries with the rest of the food and wine. I gave them to him separately and made sure to let him know they were just for him and he didn't need a share. He did insist on me having to so that I could try each flavor, and then ate the remaining 10 all by himself, so safe to say it was a hit. The charcuterie spread was excessive and delicious. He asked me to explain the various items and was an especially big fan of the huckleberry goat cheese spread. Some commenters asked about my husband's love language. It's both physical touch and quality time. The nice thing about the picnic was that we could cuddle while we ate, and when the food and wine was gone, we celebrated like mommies and daddies do. A surprising amount of people wanted to make sure that was part of the gift as well. Y'all are weird. A few commenters also pointed out that I didn't know if the necklace was all he had done, and they were right. In addition to the necklace, he had also bought flowers and my favorite wine. I didn't say anything about the necklace until this morning. I told him I loved that he remembered I wanted a birth flower gift, but would he be okay if I exchanged it for one with our son's flower instead? He responded, "Don't worry about it. It was really cheap. I just remembered this week that you had mentioned it, so I figured I should get something like that. If you want something else, let's just order it." I should have known better than to spend time stressed about the conversation. He's a very laid-back guy. So yeah, a great night. I'll just add a gentle reminder that these posts don't paint the full picture of a person, a relationship, or a life. My husband and I are very happy. We have an amazing life together, and he's a great partner to me and a father to our son. I'm not some evil bridezilla like someone mentioned, and he doesn't mistreat me. We decided last night that we're ready to start planning baby number 2, so I'm excited to continue building our life together. Be well, Reddit. Am I the jerk for telling my mom I think she should stop asking her older kids if my sister, brother, and I can stay with one of them? My mom has 2 older kids, my half-siblings, from her first marriage. They're twins, and they're both 28 now. Their dad passed when they were 6, and my mom remarried when they were 10. I, 16 female, came along 2 years later. My sister, who's 15, a year after me, and my brother, who's 13, 2 years after her. I have never felt close to my half-brother and sister. Being twins, they were always super tight and had a bond that none of us could fully understand. Sometimes it made me feel a little sad that they were so close to each other, but not us. I used to think that this was the reason we weren't close, but then I started to suspect it was more to do with us being half-siblings and having a different dad. They were okay with us. They weren't bullying us or anything. They just never put any effort into the relationship and were always distant when we would try to get closer to them. Once they moved out, we hardly ever saw them. I maybe saw them once or twice a year usually, and even then it's rare for us to interact because they will always say hi and move on to talking to other people or doing things. We're not on each other's social media, though I tried. I don't have either of their numbers or anything. It's just how it is. Honestly, I stopped seeing them as half-siblings a while ago, and they really do feel more like my mom's other kids due to the lack of relationship. A few years ago, my siblings and I wanted to go stay with them for a weekend. They lived together until a year or two ago, but they didn't want us there. I remembered finding out, I'm getting some Game of Thrones vibes here. Lannisters much? I remember finding out through an aunt that they had had some of their paternal cousins over for an entire weekend sleepover. It made me sad because their cousins would have been close to my age and I didn't understand why they would spend time with them but not us. So there's the background, and I've grown to accept and understand that they didn't need to be any closer to us if they didn't want to be. It doesn't make me sad anymore. Anyway, my parents were invited to a destination wedding and my mom asked my half-siblings if one of them could let us 3 stay over for the 4 days that they'd be gone. They said no, and she would need to find another solution. Mom asked them a few more times, and when I realized how often she was asking, I told her I thought she should stop asking them. Mom asked me why, and I told her that they never wanted to be around us, so I don't think they would want us in their space either. I pointed out Grandma and Grandpa would let us stay, and she asked me why I'd say they, half-siblings, never wanted us around. I told her they have never made the effort, have never kept in contact with us, and invited our cousins to stay with them, but never us. Mom told me that all of that was the reason she should ask them and try to convince them to spend time with us. I told her it wasn't going to work and I didn't really want to stay with either of them now. She told me I should be appreciative and stop telling her to stop. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The more your mom tries to force it, the more they will push you away. OP. They can't really push us away anymore, but I could see them pushing her away if she keeps asking. They at least talk to her a lot over the phone and stuff, but I'm sure they'll talk less if she keeps pressing the issue. Not the jerk. Your mom is forcing this relationship between you and them. It's just going to make them push you away even more. Parents need to understand that after a point, you can't force relationships and that it's going to make things worse. I hope you and your siblings have fun staying at your grandparents'. My husband, 30 male, and I, 29 female, had a bad argument and I'm staying at a hotel. My husband and I got into an argument today because he decided to clean the washer by dumping a bunch of vinegar and bleach in it. I didn't realize what he had done until I smelled something like chlorine. He told me what he had put in it. I panicked, set the washer to drain, and ran around the house opening the windows. He then proceeds to roll his eyes and tells me that it's perfectly safe and not toxic at all and that I was being dramatic. I literally had to pull up Google and show him that vinegar plus bleach equals toxic fumes. He continued to roll his eyes and shrug it off and make me feel stupid for reacting the way I did. Then he says, "Well, if your dad didn't stink up our washer doing his laundry here, I wouldn't even have had to clean it." For context, my dad is disabled from a stroke, but is still able to live independently, and we help him out by doing his laundry at our house when he visits. That's something he's not able to do himself, and he doesn't have a washer or dryer in his apartment. My hubby gets along with my dad and has never complained in any way related to him before. This was just such a weird, out-of-the-blue thing for him to say. The gaslighting about the toxic fumes, plus the insult towards my dad, had me livid at this point. I did my best to explain why I was mad, and he kept saying things like, "I don't care," and "It's not a big deal." I decided to pack a bag to stay at a hotel. He followed me into our room as I was packing and starts yelling and bringing up prior arguments from literally years ago. I ignored him and simply said, "I'm not entertaining this behavior any longer." Right as I was walking out the door, he just yelled, "Forget yeah." So here I am staying at a hotel for the night. He hasn't texted or called to check on me at all. I sent my location to my sister for safety purposes since apparently he doesn't care. That's not how I expected the day to go. My partner doesn't yell at me and I don't yell at him. We get snarly, snappy, and short-tempered, but we don't call each other names. What he did is a big deal. But him invalidating your feelings and getting mad at you is what's going to end your marriage. You need marriage counseling immediately or you're headed to divorce city. I'm struggling to understand why this guy couldn't have just said, "Oh crap, I had no idea. Let me get the fan and clear this out." But here's the thing, we know this isn't the first time he's behaved this way. Yeah, people don't just wake up in the middle of a 10-year marriage and suddenly act like this. Unless this guy has an undiagnosed brain tumor, he's probably like this fairly regularly. My Karen neighbor keeps cutting my roses, so I call the cops on her. So I, 25 female, have lived in my house my entire life. My parents moved and gave it to me when I turned 21. Ever since I was born, we've had roses in our yard. Well, I recently got a new neighbor, 31 female, and she is apparently allergic to my roses. She lives right next door and won't stop complaining about my roses. I don't want to get rid of them. I think she should have considered that I had plants when she first went to buy the house. It's not like it was the cheapest option or anything. I live in a pretty expensive neighborhood. A few days ago, I came home from work and found pieces of my rose bush on the ground. At first, I thought nothing of it, but it kept happening. I decided to get a camera in my front yard so I would know what was going on. I came home yesterday and checked the cameras, and there she is. Clear as day, you could see my neighbor, wearing some mask, chopping away at my bushes. I was obviously outraged when I saw the footage and went up to her door and threatened to call the police if I saw her do it again. She called me selfish and rude and said that I should have taken the roses out because she was allergic. I'm not getting rid of my roses. It's not my fault she's allergic and she chose to buy a house next to someone who grows roses. She said that she could get hurt, but I don't think it's my problem. Am I the jerk? Edit. So I called the cops last night, and I'm going to be pressing charges for trespassing and destruction of private property. I also asked her why she didn't just use some kind of anti-allergen, and she said she couldn't trust doctors with her diagnosis, whatever that means. Not the jerk. You need to call the police regardless and show them the video because she's not going to stop. I see a couple of things that your neighbor could be in trouble for. 1, trespassing, and 2, destruction of private property. Since you have video proof, this should be a quick and easy case. Please call the police and report it. Get an estimate of the cost of the damaged plants and take her to small claims court for replacement costs. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the neighbor? Please let us know. I'd be petty and plant tons of more rose bushes right next to the fence line. Am I the jerk for not letting my daughter use her college fund for a wedding or a house? Backstory. I, 43 female, have 4 kids. Elle, who's 22, female. Katie, who's 17. Cam, who's 15. And Isla, who's 5. And I'm also currently pregnant. Me and my husband, who's 50, started adding to college funds every month for each of our kids, pretty much as soon as we found out that we were pregnant. I won't say the exact amount, but my husband has an excellent job, so it's more than most. We never told our kids because it just didn't feel necessary. Elle got pregnant when she turned 16 and ended up dropping out of school. I was very disappointed, but I understood. However, I was under the impression she would return later, but she has no plans to. The dad stuck around, and now they have one more kid who's 3 and one on the way. They're engaged, but they don't plan to marry until they can afford it. They were doing okay financially for a while, but due to the market right now, they've been struggling because Elle can't get a job since she doesn't have a diploma, so we've been loaning them money. Katie is a senior and just got accepted into college. We've been setting everything up, and obviously she knows about the fund now. Katie and Elle were talking, and she was telling Elle about the school, and Elle asked how she was planning on paying for it. Katie responded, "My college fund." I was in the room while they were talking, and this made me panic. We had just planned on splitting it between the remaining 4 since we knew they were going to college. Elle asked me if they all had one, and I wasn't going to lie, so I said yes. She got really excited and went to call her fiancé and tell him the good news. I was confused and told her she couldn't have the money. She asked why, and I said it was for school. She got upset and left my house. The next day, I get a call from Elle. She was crying and begging me to let her have the funds so she could finally afford a down payment and maybe even a wedding. I told her she could have the money if she went back to school, and whatever money was left over she could use for whatever she wanted. She got super mad and started yelling at me and saying it's her money. I told her that it was my money, and these were my decisions, and she hung up. Now we're being harassed by her fiancé's family. They aren't as fortunate as us, calling us jerks and a lot of other names, saying it's all going to go to waste if she doesn't use it. We're setting her up for failure, etc. Now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk because my dad said we should just give her the money as we saved it for her after all. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I'm going to be downvoted a million times, but hear me out. You put money into a college fund for each kid. The whole purpose was to help with their education. It's a generous fund, and not everyone is able to do that for 1 kid, let alone 4, plus 1 on the way. She made other choices, and that's fine. Just because she was unaware of the college fund doesn't mean she can just collect it now after finding out. She was happy with her relationship until she found out, right? But can you find a compromise to smooth everything over? Say she gets her GED and 1 to 2 years in a community college or trade school, graduating with an AA or certification when the rest of the money is hers. Would that satisfy you and your husband? Plenty of stay-at-home moms have put themselves through nursing or dental assistant or hygiene school, for example, with only grants and loans, and did it through sheer hard work and determination. Her fiancé's family had absolutely no business sticking their noses into this. I find that appalling and disrespectful. They need to be told to butt out. I agree. Find a middle ground. She can't move forward in life without a GED, so set some conditions around that. Once she completes her GED, you will give her a certain percentage of the money. Once she completes an associate's or certificate program, you will give her the remaining amount. She should also qualify for financial aid. OP, not the jerk. But again, I think a compromise is the way to go. I also don't think expecting her to go to the traditional college is feasible. Everyone sucks here. Should she feel automatically entitled to the money? No, but that's about the only way she's a jerk. There's a whole flock of reasons why you are. You speak dismissively about the committed man who's stuck by her side through teenage pregnancy, another baby, and has asked her to marry him. You speak as if she's less than because of a mistake she made in high school. You say you're under the impression she would return later, but she didn't know about the education fund. So do you think maybe her lack of funding would have influenced her decision to not go back when she had a baby at home? You are also under an assumption that all your remaining kids will decide on further education. That's a pretty silly assumption. It's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. But as a grandmother, you think you'd be happy that your daughter wants to give her kids a home and 2 married parents. Edit. To everyone coming at me, check out a few more of OP's comments. It's not about money or education. It's about control. Not the jerk. It's not her money. It never was. And it was never a trust fund. It was money set aside to fund an education for her. And you've made it clear that it is very generously available to her to do exactly that. Frankly, as a 22-year-old high school dropout with 2 kids and a third on the way, at this point, she should be realizing more than ever, if she's matured at all, and based on her and her husband's struggles of the last few years, that going back to school and getting an education or vocational training of some sort is the best possible thing that she could do for her future and her family's financial stability. The fact that she doesn't see this, that she thinks you owe her something, and perhaps most importantly, that she thinks that money given to her should be spent on a wedding and perhaps a house, which later she likely couldn't afford the taxes and upkeep on, tells me that she's still making bad choices, only now she's making them as an adult with dependents. You are absolutely not the jerk, and I think it's actually important you stick to your guns here, for her sake. Tell her that the money will continue to be available to her to use for an education, which would help her in the long run far more than a wedding or a house down payment, but it isn't a trust fund, and it never was. You're the jerk. While you may have the legal right to withhold the money, this is not a thread about what you can do, but what you should do. Your daughter made some bad choices, but she can't unring the bell, and the entire purpose of a college fund is to help your kids to get a head start in life without the burden of crushing debt. Let your daughter use the money to buy a house. Let her use it to start a business. Let her use it to do something so she can get her life back on track. If you're dead set on it being used for college and nothing else, at least put it in a trust where she can use it later in life or her kids can use it later in their life. Consider also that what you're doing is making a large transfer of wealth to her siblings and not to her. This is one of the ways that estrangements occur. Be prepared for lots of fighting between you and your daughter, between your husband and your daughter, and between your daughter and siblings. All because you were insistent that the money go to college and not a house or a business. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know.
The money was saved for your college and to give you a good future. Not for you to have an extravagant wedding, which is a total waste of money, or for you to make a down payment on a house that you would end up losing because you can't afford it.
My Karen mother-in-law is trying to give away my RV. I'm feeling incredibly grossed out, so maybe this is hormones talking. I just gave birth a couple of weeks ago. Back in March, my husband and I bought an RV for $2,500 that needed new floors, some patchwork on the roof around the skylight windows, and some updated appliances. All summer we worked on the RV and sunk in over $4,000. The only thing left to complete is updated appliances, but it's not a necessity. Obviously, since we had just had our baby though, that's being put on hold. But we still intended on having it completed by next summer so we could go camping and traveling around for a few months. That's why we got the RV to begin with. Now, my husband's sister, Jamie, who's 38, is having marital problems apparently, and for whatever reason, my mother-in-law thought it would be okay to tell Jamie that she could have our RV since we aren't using it anyways. We are no contact with Jamie following her running her mouth about us to the rest of the family because I refuse to watch her dog for free anymore because I was heavily pregnant and her dog is a big untrained nuisance. We haven't spoken to Jamie in at least 3 months. We went 100% no contact when we found out that she was heavily trashing our names. So why mother-in-law would give our stuff to Jamie baffles me on many levels. Therefore, when mother-in-law came here and said,
I told Jamie she could have your RV because she needs to get out of her house. We already have renovation plans for the camper.
I was upset. I asked her why she would give away stuff that isn't hers and why she would think that was acceptable. She pulled the
family helps family
and
pay it forward
talk. Much to my surprise, my husband said, whatever, she's already told my sister she could have it, and maybe it's good karma. He was upset, but still agreed to just give it anyway. I basically told them to buzz off because I worked hard on this RV all summer while uncomfortable and pregnant, and I'll be darned if it's going to be given away to a no-contact family member right from under my nose without even asking. My husband told his mom he would bring the RV to his sisters within the week. Without doing much thinking at all, honestly, I packed up me and the baby and moved us into the RV. I'm not okay with giving away the RV, and they both know it. So I took the extreme route. My husband says I'm being overdramatic and that we can just get another RV eventually. We can't afford to buy a new one with the camping season coming up. Am I the jerk? I struggle to understand your husband here. He's a coward who clearly is scared to stand up to mommy. You've got a problem with your boundary-stomping in-laws and your husband who just lets them. Why on earth would your mother-in-law give anyone your RV, much less one you've worked on for months, and why is your husband letting her walk all over him? So family helps family, huh? What has Jamie done to help you? She's having a fit because you don't want to watch her dogs and talking smack, and you're supposed to just give her an expensive RV? I don't think so. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your husband and his mom and his sister are, though. Who does this? Just gives away an RV that's worth thousands of dollars without asking the people who own it. I assume it's a marital asset, as you and your husband both sank in money and work into the RV. This is a red flag, especially after you gave birth, and even more so after you said no. Your husband's problem is more terrible than your in-laws, though. Why is he not supportive of you and your desires? Has it always been this way in your marriage? If in the future your mother-in-law unilaterally gives away more of your belongings to others, is your husband going to still talk about good karma without supporting you? What does this mean for your kid, that their father won't support their mom? You have to think carefully about your marriage. For now, try to have your own friends and family to support you. Your postpartum and your physical and mental health are definitely going to be impacted all by this stress and in turn affect your baby. I'd tell the husband that we're keeping the RV or I'm getting it in the divorce. Also, let all of them know that it will be reported stolen if it leaves your property. I'd die on this hill. The amount of audacity, overstepping, entitlement, and pure blatant disrespect cannot be tolerated anymore. Be a good role model for your kid and show them that you never back down to a bully, even if those bullies are their own flesh and blood. You're the jerk. I've got a feeling husband was the one who actually paid for the RV and who did most of the work on it. Sure, you said we bought it, but you know how these stories usually go. His money is our money and my money is my money. Of course, if that is the case, you would totally leave that out, wouldn't you? If husband wants to give the RV to his sister, he has every right to. This is another story of a wife who expects her husband to turn against his family and support her delusional thinking. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mother-in-law? Please let us know.
All I know is I want to watch some more of those RV life videos. I can't be the only one who enjoys them so much.
Am I the jerk for not wanting to watch my brother's kids on our family vacation? I'm on vacation with my immediate family. I'm female 30 and my 2 brothers are in their late 30s. They're both married and they each have kids. 5 kids in total, ranging in age from 3 to 9 years old. My parents are also on the trip and I'm accompanied by my boyfriend of 2 years. We're here for a week and it's been really fun so far. We have a mix of days where we have activities planned and then a few free days. My family has had a text thread going for months with all of the trip planning, so we knew which days were activity days versus free days. My boyfriend and I planned a romantic dinner for one of the free nights at a really nice restaurant on the island. We made a reservation months ago because it books up. I was getting ready to go out, and one of my sister-in-laws made a comment about me dressing up to stay in. I was confused and asked her to clarify. She said that she, my brother, and my other married brother and his wife were doing a couple spa evening experience that she booked a few days earlier, and they needed me and my boyfriend to watch all of their kids. She said my brother was supposed to have asked me earlier that day. He forgot to. When I explained that my boyfriend and I already had plans, she was super unsympathetic. She said they already prepaid for the spa experience, and since we hadn't paid for the dinner yet, it wouldn't make sense for them to have to cancel their plans. I never agreed to watch their kids. I love my nieces and nephews, but my family knows I'm child-free, and I have been for years. It's been a point of contention for a long time. I wouldn't mind watching them if I had been given advance notice, but to have them slapped on me when I had plans with my boyfriend made me really upset. My sister-in-law said I didn't understand how much she needed time away from her kids because I don't have kids of my own. She said I was being selfish and I could handle one night of being a mom. It's not the point. I would have agreed if she had asked me months ago before my boyfriend and I had made dinner plans. I checked and we wouldn't be able to get another reservation before we leave. My parents walked in on us arguing and eventually they offered to watch the kids. They were supposed to go to a free concert on the beach together, but decided to cancel so someone could stay with the kids. I felt really bad, but my mom insisted. Now it's the next day, and my sister-in-law won't even look at me. I'm upset at her too, but we're stuck here for a week, so I don't know what to do. My mom thinks I should apologize, but I feel I'm the one who's owed the apology here. Am I the jerk? Edit. Forgot to add, we're not staying in a resort or hotel that would have babysitting services. We're staying in a family friend's vacation house and rental property. She said you were being selfish and you could handle one night of being a mom? Why not ask politely? Making accusations is not the way to get people to be nice to you. And why can't she accept a reasonable no? You had made plans just like they had. You couldn't reschedule. And also, she got what she needed, a babysitter for the night. So why is she mad at you and not at her husband or herself for not organizing her stuff properly? Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your sister-in-law should be mad at your brother for not asking you for one thing. But they also should have asked you before booking. It sucks that they need this, but they're the parents, and there are more options besides assuming you will do it and then trying to guilt trip you when you don't. If you haven't already, you should talk to both of your brothers about this. You're their sister, and they wanted you to watch their kids, but thought it was fine not to ask and let your sister-in-law bully you into it. That's a one-way ticket to never having you babysit. And your mom is out of line for asking you to apologize rather than having a word with her son and daughter-in-law about how rude and immature they're being. OP. My mom is very non-confrontational and just wants to keep the peace while we're on vacation, so I understand that. But yeah, I'm planning on talking to my brothers about it today when I have a chance to be alone with them. My oldest brother, not the one who's married to the sister-in-law I was talking about here, told me not to worry about it this morning, so he sees my side of things, I think. Not the jerk. This is all I needed to read. My sister-in-law said I didn't understand how much she needed time away from her kids because I don't have kids of my own. Can't handle kids, don't have kids. She said you were being selfish because you couldn't handle one night of being a mom? Nope. Child-free means that you do not want to be a mom, not even for a night. Sister-in-law needs to put her entitlement in check, and the fact that your brother did not step in is leaving me flabbergasted. There is no part in this story that you are responsible for. If your mother thinks that you should be the one to apologize, show her this post. This is a hill to die on, and we're here to support you. Hopefully, you and your boyfriend can find a way to enjoy the rest of your vacation. All the best, OP. Well, what do you think? Should OP have babysat or not? Please let us know.
Your sister-in-law is a total Karen. Boggles my mind how people can act like that.
Am I the jerk for gleefully telling people that I was diagnosed with an illness after they dismissed me? I, 34, female, have always been a filler person. My parents each had a kid they obviously favored. My mom favored my younger sister, my father my younger brother. I'm the friend that is ignored in the group. I'm the employee whose birthday is forgotten. I'm the person who doesn't get dates. I've gotten used to it. As a result of being this agreeable, filler, boring person, I think the people around me don't realize that I'm a real person who has needs like everyone else. The prime example was when I said that my chest hurt and I coughed all the time. The people I spoke to, and I know only a few people, said that it was not a big deal and that I'd be fine. I'd never complained before, so I should be fine. I took that to heart and wondered if I really should have told people that I didn't feel well and wondered if I was making it up in my head. It took me a long time to actually tell the doctor my symptoms because I thought I was overreacting, but I had to get checked out. Well, it turns out that there was something wrong with me. I have stage 2 lung cancer. I'm still independent and handling this alone. I drive myself to and from appointments, I pick up my medication, I reason with doctors and insurance. I haven't slacked in housework or at work. In fact, I've worked even harder. Today at work, I told my friend I couldn't help her move as a favor because I had a medical appointment that day. She pressed me for details, and I just said that I have treatment for lung cancer. I didn't want to give her more information than that. My husband complained that I told her the information gleefully, as if I'm happy about the news. I told him I'm happy to be diagnosed because it's proof for myself that I'm human with needs like everyone else. I wasn't crazy. He said I shouldn't act like this. My husband has been unstable and touchy about random things this year, so I don't know if he has a point. Am I the jerk? Edit. I'm in therapy. My therapist and I are working through things, and she's been very helpful. I feel somewhere between a filler person and an automation. Filler people aren't real. They don't have complexities in life, and they exist solely to make others shine. Machines don't get sick. The diagnosis was something that was concrete. I exist. I'm a person. I'm not crazy, and it's not in my head. I don't want attention from others. I cried and felt relief in the same moment. Thanks to the comments, I think I know why my husband has been unstable and touchy. The beginning of this year, the love of his life got into a car accident and broke her femur. She survived and is healthy now. I think that could be part of what's concerning him. My illness is a reminder that she could have passed and she could still pass, and life is unpredictable that way. I alone wouldn't inspire such emotion in my husband. The comments made me realize that my husband likely felt hopeless at the concept of death. I traced back when he started to become touchy and moody and realized it was when she got into that accident. My husband has asked to help, but there's nothing for him to do. I've taken care of everything so far and will continue to do so. You buried the lead with that "my husband's love of his life got in a car accident" statement. OP. The love of his life, my husband's first love, the only one that got away, whatever you want to call it. They were childhood friends. They dated and broke up when my husband was younger. She's a passionate person that wanted to live a passionate life. My husband never got over her and blames himself for losing her. I met him shortly after he broke up with her. We dated for 2 years. Through bits and pieces, I've realized how much she means to him. He was an hour late to our wedding. I found out later that his father had to talk him out of leaving me at the altar. It would embarrass his family. He had doubts because of her. I mentioned her once, and he snapped at me to never mention her name again. He looks her up constantly, as she frequently posts on social media. They remain connected. He's always interested in news of her. He loves her deeply still, I know. She got into an accident earlier this year and broke her leg, her femur. I didn't know to connect his moodiness and general upset with that until now. Update. The past week has been a roller coaster of emotion for me. My therapist had suggested that I write my thoughts and emotions in a journal, but I always convinced myself there wasn't enough time in a day. Writing that post made me realize that I was dealing with a lot of emotions that I suppressed. I did resent the people in my life who just took and took without giving back. I had told nobody besides my therapist about how much I feel like a ghost of a person and how I pushed things down and never complained. So I spent hours writing down my thoughts in a diary. I realized that I needed to be more honest and stop tiptoeing around people and make them comfortable. I told my husband that I knew about his past with his ex-girlfriend. I knew that they had unresolved feelings and he needed closure about her and their relationship. He kept checking her social media throughout the years, but it intensified this year after she was in the accident. He was shocked that I knew. I encouraged him to reach out and get that closure he wanted. We had a good conversation. He hugged me and reached out to her pretty much immediately. I think he was waiting for that push from someone. He was so happy after the conversation they had. He was glowing. She's apparently coming to our city in a month and they'll meet in person. He's been more affectionate and genuinely lighter, like there's weight off his chest. I went through the motions of life. I started ignoring calls from my parents. I didn't want to help out anymore. I was too tired. My mom called and said I was being arrogant and moving away from family before asking me to help with something. I didn't reach out to my friends. I have only a few and we would text every day. I realized we texted because I always reached out. I told someone else about my diagnosis. My neighbor, Nancy, is a woman in her late 70s. She's one of the few people I feel seen by. She cares about me, and if I had told her about my health issues, she would have told me to go to the ER. I know why I didn't tell her, but I wonder why I hope for care from people who have demonstrated no care for me instead of those that do. She was so worried for me. We had planned a fun day trip to see a flower festival next spring. I drove home on my first week of the second cycle, and for the first time, I was exhausted. I had to pull over and rest for an hour before I felt well enough to finish driving home. I was so exhausted, I didn't want to move, and I sat in my driveway. It hit me then that I didn't have stage 2. I had lung cancer. I could pass. I just started crying. It hit me then that I had lung cancer. This could end my life. I just started sobbing. All I could think of was the stupid flower festival. I haven't lived my life. I love my husband, my family, my friends, but I don't want to be married to him. I don't want to cater to my family, and I'm tired of my friends. I want to live. I want to be well enough to drive and see the flower festival with Nancy. It's only been a week and a half of change, and my emotions have gone from low to really high and back to low. I've been dreaming of my life after I beat cancer and leave my husband and friends. I don't even know if I can stick with it, but I am determined to be strong. My therapist says change from within can start small or big. She's proud of me and thinks I can get through this. OP is married to a guy who cares more about his ex than her. That's messed up. She needs to find someone who actually cares about her. Had to do a double take at the first mention of the love of his life, thinking I completely skipped over something big. Nope, just dropped it in so casually. What a messed up situation. Can't even rely on him to take her to medical appointments. Until the last post where OP finally broke down, it did not feel like this was written by a human being. The clinical way she describes her husband being blatantly in love with another woman for their entire marriage like it's just a hobby, the detachment she describes encouraging him to pursue her, and how he was only saddened by her diagnosis because it reminded him of the other woman's mortality. That's messed up. This poor woman basically trained herself into total apathy to match how little care everyone else gives her. How could literally everybody who she should be closest to fail her so miserably? Forget everybody in her life but Nancy. Patient's boyfriend is mad he has to pick up his own Uber Eats. I work in a high-level hospital as an ICU nurse, and my managers are fantastic with staffing, meaning if you have a crashing, heavily workload patient, they'll make the other patient you have an easier one so you can focus on the sick one. For a background, ICU nurses have 2 patients and we specialize in critical thinking, whereas the telefloor is the normal part of the hospital people think about and holds less sick people who don't need as much attention. So these nurses have 6 patients and specialize in tasks and prioritization. So the beginning of my shift after report, I show my face and say hi to my less sick patient who is doing fantastic and just waiting for transport to take her to the telebed. I say I'll be back around 9 p.m. in 2 hours, unless she needs me for something else, so this gives me the time to stabilize the sick patient next door. Unfortunately, the sick patient in room 1 starts coding, and the team is actively doing CPR. Crash cart in the hallway, 3 doctors there, whole team trying to save this young guy. My team is working on meds, incubating, keeping compressions going, etc., while I'm talking with doctors about what could have caused it, and I'm halfway outside the room for the healthier patient in room number 2. She sees me through the window, presses the call light, and I ignore it because I have what should have been obviously a very pressing matter. Her boyfriend ends up opening the door and standing in the hallway to just stare at me with his arms crossed. Just to give them the benefit of the doubt that she could be concerned about her health, I say, "Is everything all right?" And he goes, and tries to lead me inside. Of course, I only pay attention to him when the docs go into room 1 to brainstorm on their own and assess where to go if we get this guy back. I look back through the window of room 1 and I realize I can give them 5 seconds to make sure nothing funky is going on. So she says, "Can you get my Uber Eats order? It just said it arrived downstairs." I swear I could have had a stroke from high blood pressure at that moment. So I kindly say, "I'm sorry, I'm busy with another critical patient. Could you?" I look to the boyfriend who's plopped in the recliner with his feet up watching Netflix again on his phone. "Go get it for her?" And he goes, "I'd rather not." Oh, good sir. You don't want to? You saw the mess next door through the window, me talking seriously with 3 doctors, and the hot mess of people outside your room as we try to save a guy's life. So I tell him, I can't. The entire team is actively trying to save someone, and none of us are available to leave. So either you get it, or I can have someone get saltines for you instead. He sighs, gets up slowly, and then says, "Fine, I guess I'll go get it then," as I turn to head back into room 1. Dude literally has to turn his shoulders to slide through the massive group of people, still upset he has to take 1 elevator down. When they get moved to another room around 10, he's speaking loudly on the phone to someone saying things like, The nurses are rude. They won't even get food for their patients, etc. The icing on the cake? She had just gotten off an insulin drip for being in a diabetic coma. Never have I met a more entitled person who put having to walk and get their own food delivery above someone else's life. I think anyone who spent years working in a hospital will totally relate to this story.
Yeah, before I worked at a hospital, I never had a clue how entitled people could actually be in real life.
Stepdaughter's entitled boyfriend lands them homeless, careless, and adrift. I call my stepdaughter's entitled boyfriend Wreck-It Ralph. No relation to the trademark cartoon, just coincidental naming. He has a tendency to break, ruin, and tear up everything he touches. My stepdaughter, who's actually a sweet and endearing young woman who I love dearly, has, like many younger women with self-esteem issues, allowed herself to be led astray by this jerk. In the year they've been together, she's lost everything. But at 23, she's old enough to learn her lessons without us parents coming to her rescue until she gets rid of Ralph and gets back on track. When they first got together, they lived with her dad and myself for a few months. It very quickly became apparent that Ralph had a chip on his shoulder when it came to me. He would carry tales to my husband, causing us to argue, despite my husband telling Ralph many times that this was my house and everything in it was mine. Ralph would keep asking my husband, not me, if he could have this or that, and that's if he asked. He kept getting more and more animals, despite us telling him no more. Neither were taking care of the ones they had. They weren't buying dog or cat food and cat litter. My husband and I were. They weren't picking up the messes, and they weren't training them, allowing them to tear up our belongings. The only work these two would do is door delivery, her job with a daily payout, just to get enough money for Ralph to use for his recreational activities every day, along with eating at fast food restaurants. Ralph's chip on his shoulder when it came to me was such that they brought my husband a soda one night, walking in the back door right past me, calling out loudly, "We got you your favorite soda," to my husband in the living room with zero inclusion to me. Another example is my stepdaughter asking if she could use my debit card to go get the four of us drinks at a local convenience store one hot day. My husband and I were unloading stuff from the truck and trailer in the backyard, which was no problem. However, when checking my account, they spent $20 on food for Ralph without asking. The end came when I told them they had to replace the bedroom door their dog chewed the bottom out of, and refused to allow the pit bull they wanted to rescue, even though it had a bite history, to enter my home. They moved to my stepdaughter's mother's home at that point. During their time there, my stepdaughter kept getting tickets in her car, which is only registered to my husband. They weren't paying their insurance, which I had bought my stepdaughter her own policy and paid the startup out of my money when they lived with us, and didn't pay the plate renewal. Now her license is suspended, and it cost my husband and I $600 to get the plates, again in his name only, unsuspended. Plus, they had damaged the car and it needed repairs, so he took it from there. Before her license was suspended, but after the police took the plates from her car, my husband let her use his truck, which was on my insurance policy. Ralph drove it, and he has no license and blew the motor in it. It's now sitting and can't be used. I told my husband I would put the car on my insurance for him, but only if he drove it. If he returned it to them, I was canceling the insurance, which I stood by. Nevertheless, Ralph called daily demanding my husband return the car to them once it was legal and fixed. After 3 weeks, my husband finally said, "Look, you jerk, I don't know what it is that you think you're trying to accomplish here, but you're not demanding anything from me, and you're not getting the car back. I may have originally bought it for her because she got with you, but it is my car in my name, and I'm keeping it in lieu of the truck you ruined. Don't call me again about the car. Got it?" We'd been hearing of ongoing disputes between my husband's ex and Ralph. Things got so bad there that Ralph told my husband's ex-wife to pack her crap and get out of her own home. Another time he told her to shut up and remember who she's talking to. So we all decided it was time to let our daughter hit rock bottom since she wasn't seeing how Ralph had taken her from being a sweet, lovable, well-liked, and responsible girl in a college nursing program to this person with a criminal history and no prospects at the moment. My husband's ex-wife moved in with her boyfriend, turning the power off at the home that she had been renting, and told her former landlord, whom she was actually longtime friends with, she wouldn't allow it to affect their friendship if he evicted them for squatting, since neither were on her lease to begin with. When my stepdaughter called, wanting to come back, yeah, right, you ain't letting her come back with that idiot. My husband told her that she could, but not with Ralph. Now they are staying at a homeless shelter in the town where Ralph's mom lives, and Ralph's mom won't let them live with her either. We hate to see her go through this, but this entitled Ralph she won't let go of has really brought her down, and she can do so much better. This guy actually told us once he couldn't work at a factory that he interviewed at because it was climate controlled and his heart condition won't allow that. Then argued with me and my husband that climate controlled meant controlled by the climate, so it was hot in the summer and cold in the winter. We haven't seen him hold a job or do anything useful or productive since they've been together. Just demand stuff from us and use the people who love the girl he's becoming a Klingon to. Ralph is an absolute jerk. I'd go so far as formally trespassing him from your property and going no contact with him. Your daughter will at some stage hopefully see sense, but it may take time. I wish I could find a factory that had both air and heat. Ralph reminds me of my brother, lazy and entitled. Ralph is the scum of the earth, and we need to teach our kids to be aware of losers like this. Also, we need to teach our kids to not become losers like this. Sorry, OP, this guy sucks big time. I hope your stepdaughter is finally able to chew her way to freedom sometime soon for her own sake. I can't imagine she's happy with him. What exactly does he bring to the table besides heartache and pain? He's destroying all of her relationships and cutting her off from everyone that loves her. She has to be miserable. Tale as old as time. She rejects guy after guy for all the wrong reasons. I see you as a brother. I like you as a friend. You're just not the type of guy I usually like. Next thing you know, she's with some guy like this and refuses to leave him. Meanwhile, the good dudes out there can't get a date to save their life because we aren't convicted criminals with tattoos that do recreational activities and treat people like crap. Karen leaves her kids at our house, demanding we raise them. I, 29 female, knew from a young age that I never wanted to have or raise kids. I met my husband in college, and he was decidedly child-free too. We got married a couple of years back. My husband's younger sister, who's 24, has 3 kids who are 5 and twins who are 2, with different deadbeat guys. 2 months ago, she left all of them at our house, said she was going on an errand, and never came back. Just left. We filed a report and everything. Last we heard, she was safe, but did not want to come back. My husband's mom is a minimum wage worker, barely scraping by. She used to be a single mom and does not want to raise these kids. I don't want to raise them either. Don't get me wrong, I do feel bad for them, but raising kids is a huge responsibility. I don't want to take that up. In the 2 months they were here, our expenses have increased. We had to buy them clothes and stuff, and they're sleeping in our living room on air mattresses. We only have 1 bedroom. I had to work from home and look after them because my husband could not get work from home and daycare for 3 is expensive. It's been really tough to say the least. CPS did get involved and asked us whether we want to keep them or not. I don't. I thought my husband would be on the same page, but he wants to keep them. CPS has asked us to decide quickly and make necessary changes. Get a bigger home for one. My husband and I have gone back and forth on this. I cannot live the next 16 years like this. Raising kids is hard and expensive, but he wants me to be there for his family, which I get. So yesterday I told him I wanted a divorce, quickly before he made any commitments and dragged me into it with him. He called me a jerk for divorcing him over these kids, for abandoning him when he needs me. I told him he knew my boundaries well in advance, and this was a commitment, having kids, that he is unilaterally deciding on. Am I the jerk? This is not relevant, but it is increasingly annoying when 1 out of 5 comments are telling me about wedding vows. We did not do traditional wedding vows. We don't believe in till death do us part. Our vows did include not having kids. Our vow was to stay together till staying apart made us happier than staying together will. Staying in a toxic relationship where you can't stand each other just because you made a vow was never appealing to us. I can't fault either of them. The only jerk here is the sister. And the deadbeat fathers. The sister is safe? Great. Maybe she can use her newfound freedom to take on a couple of jobs to earn money to pay child support for her own kids, or get thrown in jail for being a deadbeat mom. While some may think of you as a bad person for your decision, you're not the jerk. You had this crazy idea that you would get to remain child-free when you married someone who also wanted to be child-free. It's not like you're not agreeing on what temperature to set the furnace or what color to paint the kitchen. This is about as huge as it gets, and he made the choice he made without caring about your feelings. You're the jerk, but you already know that. Why else would you have asked? Get your divorce and get out of that man's life. Don't ever get married again, and get some therapy, or you're just going to bounce from man to man. No problem of her ever getting married again. Any guy who hears this and has a lick of sense is going to abandon ship ASAP. she has shown that she can't be relied on in any serious problems. Spot on. If I was engaged to a woman and she told me this story, I would end the relationship in a heartbeat. Imagine being in your 50s, less than a decade away from retirement, and your elderly mother falls down the stairs and breaks her hip, so now she has to move in with you. Or your brother gets in a car accident and is paralyzed from the neck down and needs constant care. Before you even hang up the phone, this lady would be halfway out the door, and after a few decades of marriage, she'll probably take half your stuff too. That's what this is about. Abandoning your spouse when they are suddenly burdened with a moral responsibility. It would put me off of even being friends with OP. Very selfish. You're not the jerk. Your husband and sister-in-law are the jerks. Repeat after me. If you keep disrespecting my boundaries, I'm better off without you. Honestly, I feel sorry for the kids, but sister-in-law needs to understand that you're not a spare mom because she doesn't want to raise them. You are 100% the jerk and a straight-up terrible person. Please get a divorce so he can find a good human being to spend his life with. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for divorcing her husband over this or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for wanting a divorce after cancer? I, 35 female, and my husband, 36 male, have been married for 8 years and together for 11. We've got 2 kids who are 6 and 8. Last year, I was diagnosed with cancer. Although the treatment was brutal, I pulled through, or so it seems for now. The truth is, things have not been smooth for the past 5 years or so. I've been trying to fit in what my husband sees as ideal life, living in remote locations and adjusting my life to make it work for us as a family. His dream is to live by the ocean, far away from people. I'm a city girl. For the sake of making it work for both of us, I've taken jobs that are well below my abilities. For him, though, it does look like it's what I wanted. It was, because at that point it was the only available thing given the compromise. My husband was living his dream life, not even realizing that my resentment was building up. I did bring this up many times, but he was dismissive. Things blew up 2 times. He saw me flirting with other guys. I never even kissed anyone, but it was an emotional betrayal probably. I gave up alcohol 3 years ago to make sure I'm always in control and I don't do stupid things that can ruin my relationship. My husband is a great father. I've never had a father like that. He loves our kids and they have a great relationship. So do I with my kids. But he isn't a great partner. He asks me every day about my day, but he never really listens to what I say. He keeps talking about his work, but doesn't notice me. He makes a lot more than I do, 7 to 10 times as much, but insists that we pay everything 50-50 to keep it fair. During the past years, I've been covering more expenses than him, and I was working full-time during my treatment. He never offered to pay for any extras. In his book, they were years, my pregnancies, where I was paying less, so now it's fair that I pay more. I don't feel emotionally connected to him at all, and I don't want to hook up with him. So now I've been still contemplating divorce for over 8 months. I'm out of treatment, and I don't know if I'm going to stay healthy for a long time, but I'm tired of compromises. He's a nice guy, and we're planning to start therapy, but I just want to live a new life. Therapy seems like a burden to me. Am I the jerk for wanting a divorce? Divorced cancer alumni here. I could have written this post myself. My ex was wildly unsupportive during my treatment and insisted on me providing more financially than him, despite my years of volunteering at his business, which delayed my career. It took me 18 years to leave him, but I've never been happier. We don't have kids, so I can't speak to that. Allowing yourself to be happy is not a jerk thing to do. I make 4 times what my wife does. We have no separate accounts, completely shared finances. How on earth can people who split finances not take into account income differences? That's not fair at all. No, he is not a nice guy. He is definitely not a nice husband. Just one thing, OP. How would you feel if your daughter's spouse treated her the way your husband is treating you? OP. Oh no, I'd grab her by the hand and take her to either a counselor or a divorce attorney. Then why not do that for yourself? By staying in this toxic relationship, you're only showing your daughter that it's okay to be treated this way. Kids grow up idolizing their parents' relationships, and by staying where you're treated this way, you're showing her that this is what's right and expected of her. Compromise your happiness to make your husband happy. If you love your daughter enough to not want this for her, then why not love yourself enough to leave? You deserve happiness too, OP. He's financially punishing you because you grew 2 humans at great risk to yourself and weren't able to contribute equally? He's the one who didn't contribute equally. Ask for surrogacy payments in the divorce. What a tool. He's not a nice guy or a good father if he's teaching his kids to financially mistreat their partners. Goodness, just leave this man. Life is short and you know that. You're lucky to have it. Don't waste your remaining years being miserable. It will be hard on the kids, but they'll get over it. It's 2023, not 1953. Kids can survive a divorce. It would be better for them to grow up with happy, separated parents than with unhappy parents who are still together. You're the jerk. Love how nobody is bringing up the fact that you thought it was okay to flirt with other men and emotionally betray your husband. I'm sure this wasn't the first time you did such a thing, it's just the only time he caught you. The same husband who is such a great father and provider makes way more than you do and works hard every day. I hope you do divorce for his sake. Maybe he can find someone who knows the meaning of the word loyalty. Why do men with so much to offer settle for women like this? Reminds me of my two sons. Both are extremely hard workers, but married to women who have zero respect for them and have both been caught cheating. If y'all had half the respect for your husband that I had for my late husband, you would all be ashamed of yourselves. My husband asked for a paternity test. It came back positive, but our relationship was never the same. I'm 24, female. My husband, who's 31, and I have 3 kids. Our sons look exactly like him, dark skin and dark eyes and hair. But our daughter doesn't. She looks exactly like my great-grandparents, really pale, blonde, and green eyes. But apparently, he didn't think it was possible that our daughter could look like my great-grandparents, and from the moment he saw her, he told me he wanted a paternity test. At first, I refused, because I felt like it was humiliating and because I didn't think it was necessary, because I never cheated on him, and I hoped he would trust me. But he didn't, and for the first 2 months of our daughter's life, he made my life horrible. He didn't want to hold her, even if she cried desperately while I was doing something else. He never woke up at night to help me with her. He never helped me with anything, and that hurt me so much, because with our boys, he was completely different. He helped me all the time with absolutely everything, and he was always there for me after giving birth. But this time, he left me alone, and it was the worst experience of my life. I have no family here, and his entire family, from the moment they saw my daughter, turned their backs on me. I don't have any friends here either, so it was just my daughter and me. She's a colicky baby, so it was very difficult for me to do everything alone, and on top of that, help with our sons. I decided to do the paternity test because one day, his entire family came to our house to celebrate my son's birthday, and no one spoke to me, and they didn't want to include my daughter in the pictures that my in-laws took of all the grandkids. So I knew it was stupid to keep waiting for them to come to their senses. Well, the paternity test came back positive, and everyone was shocked, and of course they felt guilty for not having believed in me. Everyone apologized, and my husband even cried when he held our daughter in his arms for the first time, and I know that his apologies were genuine, and that's why I forgave him, but I don't know how I can forgive his family. They treated me really badly and said horrible things about me just a few days after giving birth, and I can't forget their insults. My husband knows that I don't want to see his family, nor do I want them near any of our kids, and he told his family. So these last 3 months, it has been just the 5 of us. But it doesn't feel as good as I expected. My husband is constantly apologizing and crying every time he holds our daughter, and I'm getting tired of the situation. I want us to be happy as we were before. So how can we move on? My husband suggested that we should start couples therapy. How much can therapy help? I would have stapled the paternity test and divorce papers together. I'm so sorry this happened to you, but I would not forgive any of them. If anything, your husband is the worst of the bunch. He's your husband and he dropped the ball massively. Not only that, but he then gave his family that ball to throw at y'all. It's a no for me. Just the way he treated your daughter would be hard to get over. Even if he thought she wasn't his, that wouldn't have been her fault. How old were you when you got together? Asking because you must have started very young to have 3 kids by 24. Given his maturity level, I guess it would make sense that he went for someone much younger than him. Your husband is a cruel person. Could you really move on from that? No, I couldn't. Also an idiot. He clearly doesn't know how genetics work and would rather destroy his family than study about it. I'm gonna be non-biased. I'm a woman, by the way. If I were a man and my wife gave birth to a blonde baby opposite to myself, I would have suspicions because blonde genes are recessive, even if you didn't cheat, but there are a lot of women nowadays that cheat and make the men believe that the baby is theirs. Paternity tests should be mandatory for every birth to erase any doubt. Even if you were loyal and didn't cheat, I found you quite selfish and immature for refusing a paternity test just for your ego, and you didn't even try to see it from your husband's perspective. You could have done a paternity test right after birth, which would have prevented you and your husband from this traumatic experience. He's also hurt, not just you. His family has no right to treat you like this, and you could press charges against them. They're scumbags. But for your husband, I really think you were childish and petty for refusing a paternity test from the start, which would have eased everything. Instead, you preferred the high road, causing issues for both of you in the process. And even in your post, I just see your point of view. I don't see you trying to view it from your husband's perspective. He's crying, and you're just fed up from his crying and remorse. Both of you really lack communication as a couple. You need to go to therapy and fix this. OMG, don't listen to this woman. She doesn't seem to understand how insulting and heartbreaking it was for him to even ask for a paternity test. She thinks it was on you to prove your innocence instead of your husband to actually trust you. He let you struggle for months instead of actually educating himself and learning how a family's genetic features can be passed along for generations or even skip generations and show up again in future generations. The chances for her daughter to be blonde is really slim, almost 1% to have blonde genes from a great-grandparent. So would you believe the 1% from the great-great-grandparent or 50% from a secret affair with a blonde guy? So tell me which one seems more logical and has a higher percentage based on science. Try to be rational and look into science because you were the one who brought up genetics and basic biology. They're both at fault. Like you, I didn't just blame the husband, but saw this as an objective standpoint as a doctor, and I think that both parties have their fault. Why do you like breaking people apart? Paternity tests should be mandatory, whether the baby looks like the parents or not, so there will be no doubts on both sides. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
Bruh, if that baby comes out not looking anything like me, you bet your backside we're getting a paternity test done.
Oh, Karen, you're gonna tick some people off talking like that.
Yeah, that tends to happen when you speak common sense.
My husband deserted me without a word. I'm still reeling from this, and I just need a vent. I'm 48 female. My husband, who's 50, and I have been homeless for about a year after he was fired from his job, but staying in motels. I do work online and have been able to keep a roof over our heads. He hasn't worked in a year. So on Tuesday, when he said he had a job interview, I was excited. He walked since the truck broke down and was sold. He said he needed both phones for numbers, so I gave it to him, not thinking anything about it, especially since I could still get in touch with him via text now. After about an hour, he texted me and said he got the job and just had to fill out paperwork and get his drug test done and would only be a couple of hours. Then I saw 3 expenses on the bank card in the county over, and I knew something wasn't right. Those couple of hours turned into that night, then the next morning. He not only wasn't answering my texts or calls, but he blocked me completely. He had both phones, both bank account cards, and my valid ID. Before I had a chance to cancel the cards, because it was my money on there, he had pretty much wiped out the account. I still had a few days left at the motel, so called around. My dog, cat, and I are safe at the moment, and I opened a new bank account, but I have to wait on the cards to arrive. But we can't stay here forever. I'm hoping the card arrives soon and I can get my ID done so we can get back into a motel, which is the only option at the moment, until I can build up enough money for rent deposit, etc., and find a cheap apartment or house. I do have a paycheck coming Thursday, though I'm not sure what to do after Monday when I can no longer stay where I am. As far as I know, my husband is with another woman. He contacted his brother just long enough to say he was safe, but wouldn't give an answer why. We'd been married for 9 years, but started dating back in 1988. We weren't arguing, and I thought everything was fine. Not a word, and I'm just devastated. I can't fathom why he just left me and our pets like that with no access to money and tried to clean it completely out, a vehicle, or even a live phone. He knew that most likely we would be out on the streets, but luckily we did find a temporary haven for a few days. I guess he just found someone that he wanted more than someone who supported him and was loyal through these bad times. I figure he found another woman with more money or something who could take care of him like I did. Anyways, thanks for letting me vent. Do you have family or friends to help you? OP, not really. All my family are deceased, and the one person I could call is helping me right now, but can't stay for more than a couple of days. We've had to move so many times because he couldn't keep a job or wanted to try someplace new. I think I became really isolated from everyone. I thought another friend was going to help, but they said they thought about it and didn't want any drama at their house if he decided to show up, which I can't blame them. It's pretty much just me, the dog, and the cat. Update. Myself and my pets are safe. My new bank card should be coming in today or tomorrow. With my paycheck on Thursday, I get to move into a studio apartment that I found. It's small, but bigger than a motel room, and it has a kitchen. They allow pets and even have a little fenced-in dog play area. I'm still working to beef up my paycheck for the deposits and food. After I get settled in, I do have an appointment with legal aid counseling for the area. So things are definitely looking up, and I really feel like I've got this and can take care of myself. Where I work has announced that there will be a huge increase in work available and should continue through the next year. And if he even tries to contact me, I'm not buying anything he says, especially if he tries to weasel his way back in. He can talk to my lawyer. Still no word from him? OP. Nope, not a word, and it's been a week. At this point, I don't even want to hear from him. Knowing him, he may try to contact me in a few weeks and say he deserves to explain himself. You know, after his side piece, or whoever he's with, finds out who he really is. And I'd tell him I and the cat and dog deserve to not be put in the situation he put us in, but what you gonna do? He deserves nothing. Can you go to the police and charge him with theft of money in your account? OP. Unfortunately, it was a joint account. I did contact the police, but they said since his name is on the account, it's a civil matter. So it's something I'll have to talk about when I speak with a lawyer. I have all documentation showing that the only deposits were coming in from my paycheck, so hopefully I'll be able to at least get half back. I have direct deposit information for the accounts showing where the money came from and screenshots of his last transactions. Last update. I and the furballs are in our new apartment, safe and sound. It took a lot of hard work and every penny I had for my paycheck, but we made it. I still need to get furniture, but we have a roof, and that's a great start. We're going to be all right, I know it. And even though I need time to know and love myself again and heal, it was kind of a confidence boost to be flirted with by a couple of the neighbors. I know many people were concerned about me seeing a lawyer, which I did today. The retainer won't be too bad, but it will need to wait until next week for payday. But it's the beginning of the next step. And I did hear back from him. I received a short email, which was the only way he knew how to get in touch, which just said, "Sorry, how are you?" It took a lot out of me to not respond because there's still a lot of hurt and grief that I'm processing. But I'm proud to say that I just sent a message back with the number of the law office I was going to, then created a filter to send future messages to the trash. It hurt, but it felt good at the same time. Someone in my old neighborhood wants a free house. I found a letter in my mailbox when my wife and I listed our house last year. I have redacted identifying info. Hey neighbor, I hope this letter finds you well and in good spirits. I write this in confidence it will find its way to someone willing to help me fulfill a very lofty goal. Over the years, I've longed to live in and raise my kids and grandkids in a safe, friendly, energetic, peaceful, clean neighborhood with good schools. I often pondered what it was like to live on the other side of the tracks, literally. On my way home from work, I'd veer off through the neighborhoods and imagine having a home here in this thriving neighborhood. It was always the trees for me. I earnestly believed one day I'd make it happen. Unfortunately, I haven't. I've worked my tail off and managed my way through many, many obstacles, but haven't hit that pinnacle. I do well for myself, and I live a well-rounded, happy life, and I'm uber grateful for what I have. I just don't think I will ever be able to afford a home in this neighborhood on one income, especially with the market the way it is and no end in sight, unless something marvelous happens. Therefore, I'm reaching out to the community to find out if there is anyone out there that would like to donate a home to me or sell me one at a ridiculously low sale price. I know, the audacity. But there are those with abundance looking to bless someone. I see it every day. I even participate when I can. I promise to be a good neighbor and to love it and appreciate it for the rest of my life. I realize this is a radical idea, but who knows what's out there? Someone that has way more than enough and would love to pass their home on to someone that simply asked, has two and is ready to move to their warm weather home and doesn't need to turn a profit, is just plain sick of humans and going off grid, or just wants to pay it forward and can write it off. Bought a fixer-upper and life changed. I'm very handy. I'm getting older though. Just hit the Powerball and is leaving everything behind. Maybe you know someone with a home elsewhere in a community just as lovable. Please do pass this letter on. You never know. So here I am asking. My dad always said, a closed mouth don't get fed. I'm currently renting in another area and I love it, but the rent keeps increasing every year. I've worked for this company for almost 20 years. Well, when I started passing out the letter I did, unfortunately I was part of their layoffs this week. I've attended a women's group in another area for 15 years as well. All reasons I have intentionally left my name out of this, hoping to save face for now. I made an email for responses to this letter. Please no hurtful messages. I've seen the nasty comments on the forums, and I assure you I'm a good person with a good heart and good intentions. I will provide you with my full name and address and references and background check. No resale contract, you name it, should you find interest in my request. Otherwise, thank you for simply reading my letter. So long for now. Turns out there are 15,000 homes in this area, so I have a lot of work to do. Serious inquiries only. Here's my email. Update. My sister demands to take my camper for her son to live in. My sister and her husband fell on hard times because of the lockdown. They went from renting a nice house to having to rent a room from a friend. It was supposed to be temporary, but they've been in his house for an entire year, and he didn't have more than one room to spare to rent to them. I have a family of my own, and my house is full, so I didn't want them living with me. But I have a vintage camper trailer in my backyard, one of those small ones that they called a canned ham type. It's had various repairs over the years, including redoing the floor and ceiling, as well as getting a new axle, and it's in pretty decent condition for being over 50 years old. I take this camper on yearly trips with friends and on camping trips with my family, and I'm very particular about its upkeep. My sister, though, has asked to borrow the camper numerous times to put it in her friend's backyard so her teenage son could have some privacy and use it as a personal bedroom. But I know my nephew. He's destructive with everything and would turn my camper into a total mess, and I'm certain they wouldn't want to give it back whenever I need it because he'd already be living in it. I know they can't simply go out and get a camper of their own because ones in usable condition are not cheap, and right now they're trying to save every extra dime to get back on their own feet. Recently, my sister has gotten our parents involved, and they think I should just lend them the camper, but I've still refused. They won't let up and seem to think that if they keep hounding me as a collective that I'll give in, but I haven't. My wife is on my side and has refused to let my sister and brother-in-law in when I wasn't home. They have a vehicle that can tow the camper, so I don't trust them not to take it if they can get into the backyard. My house also has cameras, and my sister and brother-in-law are aware of them now. They say I'm the jerk because I only use the camper a few times a year and they need it now. But I worry that they wouldn't want to give it back, much less return it in the same condition. I firmly believe I'm in the right, but with my parents and sister constantly breathing down my neck, I thought I'd come here for an unbiased opinion. Am I the jerk for not lending the camper to them? Info. I did suggest they get my nephew a tent, but they shot the idea down and called a tent temporary. If anything, that just felt like another red flag to me. More info. Our parents do not live close anymore. They moved several states away to retire a few years ago. Update. I showed my sister and brother-in-law this post after getting the verdict. My parents have seen it as well. They are all very unhappy with me, but my parents have backed off and say they won't bother me with it again. I also spoke with my sister alone and went through the rough estimates of what possible repairs to the camper would be should my nephew damage it. My sister was not happy to see those numbers. Then I called her out on how they'd likely not want to return the camper when I need it, but they also tried to come to my house when I wasn't home to take it without permission, and I told her I'd have no problem calling the police if they ever try to do that. My sister is still trying to say that her son needs the camper, but when I went through the comments on this post with her, she became incredibly embarrassed and then she got angry. She left saying she won't bother me for the camper anymore, but still stated that she thinks I'm a jerk. I didn't reply because I knew she was waiting to gaslight me, just waved her goodbye and she left. My brother-in-law called me shortly after to yell at me, but he had no leg to stand on other than that they want it. I told him I'd contribute $100 for a tent, but they're on their own for the rest. They actually agreed to the $100, so I guess my nephew is getting a tent to live in. Update. Things seemed to get better after I made my sister and brother-in-law give up on borrowing my camper. If they'd gotten their hands on it, I likely wouldn't have gotten it back anytime soon, short of getting police or a lawyer involved. Some people wondered if my sister and brother-in-law were going to actually use the $100 I gave them to get my nephew a tent to have his own place in the backyard. I admit I had my doubts, but they followed through on getting him one. Our parents sent them some money as well, and they got my nephew a good-sized tent that he can have a cot to sleep on in and a small amount of simple furniture. I personally donated the cot as I had an old Coleman one sitting in my garage unused for years. I gave him a folding camping chair too. The boy got electricity in the tent via an extension cord from the main house. However, he frequently complained about the heat during the day and only had a couple of those little pseudo air conditioners that you can just put water in to keep his tent cool. Though honestly, I doubt this situation would have been any different if he had my camper, because it can get pretty hot inside of it too. Now on to what happened a bit over a month later. My sister and brother-in-law were evicted from their friend's house. Apparently, while there was trouble with my nephew needing his own space and being messy and defiant, they were also having more trouble with the friend who was also their landlord. They tried to smooth things over by putting their son in the tent so he wouldn't be in the house much to avoid trouble. I suppose that might have worked had my sister and brother-in-law not been caught with things they shouldn't have had, illegal things, bad ones. Their friend/landlord went into their room while they were away and he found their stash. That's why they were evicted. Suddenly, it made sense why in 2 years they couldn't have afforded a small apartment to move into despite both of them working full-time. Their extra cash just went right to their habits instead of saving it like they claimed to have been doing. Looking back, they did look a bit more unhealthy at the time, but I assumed it was due to stress. And not long after being outed, their habits put them behind bars. People who are using this kind of stuff can go very wild in an instant, and that's exactly what happened. When their friend/landlord gave them an eviction notice for having found this stuff in the house, my sister and brother-in-law both got physical with him, and he called the police. That scared them, and they locked themselves in their rented room. Meanwhile, my nephew was blissfully unaware of what was happening as he was just gaming alone in his tent. The friend/landlord pressed charges, and the police soon arrested my sister and brother-in-law because there was indoor security cameras that caught the whole altercation. I was very surprised about what had happened when I heard about it. I got a call from the police station, and I was asked to take in my nephew since he could no longer stay where he was. Since our parents are states away and living in a retirement community, they couldn't take him in, so it was up to me, and I did so. I wasn't particularly fond of my nephew, but I realized his upbringing really did not help our relationship, nor did the fact that my sister and I don't really get along. We brought his tent over to my place and set it up in my backyard. He's still living in it, even though we've cleared out the attic for him, but he says he likes the tent better because it feels like his own little house where he can just be himself. We've even added a mini fridge that I bought used in there for him, so he can have cold drinks when he wants them. Currently, we're still working on becoming my nephew's permanent legal guardians. My sister and brother-in-law are both facing heavy charges. They assaulted a man, resisted arrest, and were in possession of things they shouldn't have had. From jail, though, they've actually been very cooperative, albeit while dealing with withdrawals and no longer being able to self-medicate. I've been to see my sister, and she said she and her husband were so out of it the day that it happened, they don't even remember attacking their friend. I don't know if they're faking memory loss to try and get a lesser punishment, or if they really were that messed up. But I suppose it doesn't matter. It changes nothing since there was CCTV showing the attack. They're looking into possibly getting a plea deal when they go to court in November. But even with that, they may be in prison until their son is over 18 at least. I didn't have the heart to risk the foster system on my nephew. My wife has had my back on this too, and we've been working as a team. My sister and brother-in-law have signed over the title to their SUV to me, and the plan is to make it my nephew's vehicle when he gets older since he'll be 18 in 3 years. Or we can sell it to get him something that uses a lot less fuel. I already had to pay to get the SUV back from the police impound. That's money I know I'm never going to get back. When my sister and brother-in-law get out of prison in a few years, they're not exactly going to have much to their name. So taking care of their son and making sure he grows up in a better environment feels like the least I can do. For those wondering about the stuff they were using, it wasn't entirely out of left field. My sister was especially troubled in her teenage years and struggled with addiction in her early 20s with the same thing. She nearly got kicked out of college for it. Our parents always dug her out of the mire and helped her back on her feet. They even paid for her rehab. We all thought she'd been clean for a long time, but she admitted to me when I visited her in jail that her husband also had the same addiction issues. That's actually how they met. Not in rehab, but in a focus group after the rehab. They didn't admit to any of this until recently, not sure why. But with the stress they faced in the past 2 years, falling back into old habits became easy for them. I've tried checking up on their former landlord to ask if he was okay. However, he wants nothing to do with my family. He had some pretty offensive things to say when I went over to gather my sister and brother-in-law's stuff, once police gave me the okay. And the man actually threatened me while I was there carrying out the boxes. He said he thinks my family are all alike, a bunch of filthy jerks. So I don't feel as sorry for him as I did. He's a pretty big jerk himself. My nephew also confirmed this. My kids weren't exactly receptive of their cousin being around. There's a bit of an age gap between them, and they just don't relate to one another. And while my nephew is messy, we make him clean his tent once a week, and we make him shower at least 2 to 3 times a week. We live in a warmer climate, but now that the seasons are changing, it's cooling down a little bit to where he says the tent isn't so bad. He's got a tablet, a laptop, a DVD player, and a Nintendo Switch to occupy his time. But we keep these things in the house whenever my nephew isn't home. It's way easier to steal out of a tent than a house after all. Considering how angry my nephew was before, he rarely shows his temper now. Yes, he makes it hard to get him to do his chores, but as a whole, he's shown more improvement in a couple months than I saw in 3 years. He's extremely grateful, but he's also very solitary. We give him space most of the time, and I make sure my kids don't bother him either. He's going through a lot right now. My nephew plays a lot of Zelda and Fortnite. At least those are 2 of the games he plays that I know of. My kids love those games too. We've also given my nephew the old 10-speed road bike I used to use years ago. He rides it to and from school as we live about a mile away from the local high school. Thus far, most of the drama from him has been school-related. He had to change to a different high school and make new friends, which he wasn't particularly happy about. He really doesn't like doing his homework, and he's been fighting with his teachers, but that's a problem many parents face on the regular. He says he's made a few friends though, and I'm thankful for that. We're taking things one step at a time, and so far it's slowly getting better. My nephew has also talked of one day getting a part-time job. For the record, he brought this up, not me or my wife. He says he needs to be ready to be independent when he's 18, but we wouldn't kick him out just for getting older. He's one of our kids now too, after all. But if he's willing to work hard and move on to working full-time or going to college, we'll encourage him. I just don't want him ending up like either of his parents. He seems to be far better off mentally without their influence now anyway. It makes me regret not wanting to take him in sooner, but I didn't know how bad things really were. To think this all started because my sister and brother-in-law wanted my camper for their son. And those of you who said they potentially wanted it to skip town if they had gotten a hold of it, you may very well have been right. They were on thin ice with their landlord and falling ever deeper into addiction. Thus far, though, my nephew has been completely indifferent to the camper, even though his tent is practically right next to it. He says as long as he has his own space, he's fine. Reminds me of when I was his age. I enjoyed hanging out and spending nights in the old shed my parents made into a playhouse for me and my sister when we were kids. But we are still required to have a room at the ready for my nephew whenever a social worker checks up on us. He has the bulk of his stuff in the attic room, but chooses to stay in the tent, which the social worker doesn't seem to mind since it was my nephew's preferred place to hang out, so long as an actual room was available to him. We also have a 7-foot-tall privacy fence all around the backyard and cameras too. That helps my nephew feel safe back there at least. So for now, I think we have things covered. I probably won't update again, as it's pretty much a guarantee my sister and brother-in-law are going to be locked up for a few years. Our parents are especially mad at them about it and have thanked me to no end for taking my nephew in. They want to fly over to visit this Christmas so we can all spend time as a big family for the first time since lockdown. And before I go, I know some are probably going to ask where brother-in-law's family is for all of this. Couldn't they help? Why didn't my sister and brother-in-law ask them for help? Well, the answer is they couldn't. I don't know a lot, but brother-in-law spent the latter half of his own childhood in the foster system. His family aren't in his life. I don't know who they are or where they are. He hated them so much that he actually took my family name when he married my sister, so they aren't involved whatsoever with my nephew.
Most of the stories we read infuriate me, but this one, my heart feels something strange right now. I don't know what it is.
Aw, is Karen getting emotional?
Silence, you fool.
My girlfriend demands to be a stay-at-home mom to her kids while I financially support them. I, 28 male, have been dating this girl, Amy, who's 29, since May of 2022. We met through a mutual friend and things were going pretty well up until a few days ago. Amy has 2 kids from a previous relationship, twin boys that are 7 right now. I get along great with them. Amy and I were starting to discuss moving in together and how that would all work out with the kids. Things didn't seem like a problem until she asked if we can find a place that I can afford to pay the rent on my own in case she becomes a stay-at-home mom. I asked in what instance she would become a stay-at-home mom when we aren't planning on having more kids and I had a vasectomy 2 years ago that she knows of. She said it's always been her dream to be a stay-at-home mom for her kids and the boys will benefit a lot from always having her home. She said she knows it'll be a lot of work for me to take on, but she would appreciate if we could talk about it and possibly make it happen as soon as we move in together. We discussed it, and I told her I'm honestly not comfortable with the idea of me being the sole breadwinner for our 4-person household. I could afford rent on my own, but groceries, bills, stuff the kids will need, etc., I can't afford all of that. And if I could make it work, that would mean nothing left for savings. I also said the boys are in school most of the day, and although I agree that any kid would greatly benefit from having a parent available 24/7, I don't think it's a necessity. I also told her I'll be stressed out having them all rely on me. She said she understands and that it's fine, and we didn't speak about it again. I got a call from her mom like a week after I had the discussion with her. Her mom started the conversation sweet enough, before getting to the point. She asked why I decided to date a single mother if I'm not willing to step up for her and her kids. To be honest, this kind of ticked me off. I didn't know deciding to date a single mom meant I'd have to happily be financially responsible for them all. I told her, with all due respect, this is between me and Amy. She said Amy won't have more kids because she's with me, and this is her only chance of being completely devoted to her kids. And although I can easily afford it, I'm being stingy because I simply can't be bothered to make a sacrifice. My blood was boiling, and I was trying not to say something rude back. I told her it isn't her business, and I cut the call. I spoke to Amy and asked her what her mom was on about. She said she needed someone to vent to about the situation, and her mom just so happened to have her best interest at heart. She said she thought it would be better for me to get her mom's perspective than to make a decision. I asked if it would be okay for me to go tell my mom that my girlfriend is asking me to bankroll her and her kids' lives and watch my mom call her names for it. She said I'm taking things too personally and I should have expected things to not go great after our discussion. I'm at a loss here. Edit. For everyone asking about the kid's dad and if he pays child support, he isn't a bad person, he's just broke and lives halfway across the world. He couldn't pay child support even if he wanted to, given he can barely afford to take care of himself. He also has a lot of health issues, and that makes it difficult for him to work. He calls the kids quite a bit and is involved as one can be in his situation. She makes enough to take care of herself and her kids, so it's been all right for them financially. Not the jerk, but you do realize she plans to make this happen whether you agree to it or not, right? You'll move in together and she'll get let go, then have trouble finding a job. This is how it sounds to me too. She already decided not to work and that she has a meal ticket, and right now she's just in the process of making it happen one way or the other. Also, the last line about, "You should have expected that things would not go great." Darn, that statement alone would give me serious pause about continuing a relationship with someone. It has some bad vibes to it. Not the jerk. Get out of there, mate. This will not end well for you. Or he at least has to put a foot down and stop all of the moving in plans. If she conveniently loses her flat as well, he should tell her to move in with her mom and end the relationship. If not, maybe the relationship has a slim chance, but that's my romantic side. Wow, the audacity. Since you're happy to play with my kids, now pay for them too. Why? Because I said so. Run for the hills. Not the jerk, she's trying to use you for your finances. If she wants to be a stay-at-home mom, tell her to get more child support. Not the jerk, but you are an idiot, and I'm not trying to insult you at all, only trying to help. The mindset that her mom expressed to you, that's what all men will be held to once they choose to be with a single mom. Deadbeat knocked her up, now you're supposed to be the one to financially support them. I hope one day men learn to stop dating single moms. If you're a single dad, then it might be okay to settle. But when you don't have kids of your own, yet choose to be with a woman who already does, well, you kind of deserve what you're stupid enough to sign up for. Oh, that last comment is gonna tick everyone off, isn't he? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OG or Amy? Please let us know.
Bruh, did you just say OG?
Am I the jerk for transferring my assets to my daughter before my marriage? I, 28 female, had my daughter, who's 9, while I was in college. I'm ashamed to admit I don't know who the dad is. It was a drunken party mishap. My parents disowned me, and sympathizing with my plight, my grandpa took me in. He had a bad relationship with my dad. Grandpa passed 2 years ago, leaving me his entire estate. He was kind of rich. I started dating my fiance, Max, who's 35, about 4 years ago. He has 2 kids who are 6 and 10. He has full-time custody of them as well. Their mom married someone else and moved across the country. She pays child support but makes no effort to contact them or visit them. We've lived together for over a year now, and everyone gets along pretty well. We stay at the house my grandfather left me and split all of the bills and expenses 50-50. but keep the rest of the finances separate. He popped the question 2 months ago, and I said yes. A few weeks ago, we had a minor fight. My daughter's birthday is coming up, and I wanted to gift her a pony. She's been learning to ride for a few years now and really wants one. When I mentioned this to Max in a passing conversation, he got mad at me for wasting our money on stupid gifts like this. I told him I'm not taking anything out of our budget and just buying it out of my money. He said then I should buy his kids ponies too to make it fair. I said sure, let's split the expense. He told me I should buy it myself since I'm rich and it's my decision to buy my daughter a pony in the first place, that he's trying to make it equal for all the kids in the household and doesn't have the money to waste like this. I got his point, but I also felt that he would want me to make everything equal with his kids too. I get that they will be my kids too, and I should not treat them differently. But I also felt like my daughter should not have to split her generational wealth. It's not mine, it's my grandpa's, and he loved her. He left it to me, believing I would pass it on to her. So I made a trust fund transferring 50% of assets I inherited into that. It has rules regarding reasons I can make withdrawals out of it, like education and separate living allowance based on age, money for marriage, for housing, an entire balance made available at 30. I set up another trust fund for myself, putting 30% of the assets into it with yearly allowances and then to dissolve after 50, hoping to retire then. Balance 20% is mostly the house, land, and emergency funds. I did it, so whatever income I earn, I'll be able to make it equally split within kids. But inheritance will stay intact for my or my daughter's future without having to be split up and used for my stepkids. My fiancé found out about this a couple of days ago, saw some related papers in my drawer. He was really mad at me for cutting him and his kids out. He said if I was marrying him, we would be sharing all assets and finances, that it's not fair for me to keep 90% of my wealth just to myself and my kid when he's sharing all of his with us. I said I was sharing everything I make too, just the inheritance is kept aside. He's not bringing any inheritance into the union either. He said that's because he has none, and it's incredibly selfish of, okay, this guy's an idiot. Are you seriously still gonna marry him? That with this, my daughter will have a luxurious life while his kids have average life, since there's no way we can afford all of that for them with our income only. I said generational wealth is separate and it should go to biological family. He called me a jerk for discriminating and depriving his kids of an equally good life. Am I the jerk? Oh, you're only the jerk if you still marry this guy. Oh my goodness. Not the jerk. Smart move and easier than a prenup agreement, which I suspect he would have resisted signing. I guess the question is he marrying you or your money? Right now, he's got a pretty sweet deal. He doesn't pay rent for himself and his 2 kids, and he has a self-sufficient girlfriend who doesn't need him to pay for anything. He's so jealous he can't see straight. Think about this one long and hard. Not the jerk, but consider not marrying this person if he can't accept your decision. He might have wanted to marry you for your money if he's so bothered by this. You do realize, because of his attitude, you've already protected your kid's assets once he brought up marriage. You did this, in my opinion, because you know his intentions aren't honorable. Not the jerk, but follow your instincts. Not the jerk. Why are you marrying this man? He sees you as his sugar mama for him and his kids. You're protecting your daughter and yourself as your grandfather would have wanted you to. Frankly, I would step back from this relationship for a while. He sees you as a free meal ticket, which is something your grandfather would not want. What's your fiancé going through financial documents in your drawer for anyway? You need to seriously consider this relationship. It sounds like he wants a free ride. Good luck, OP. You're gonna need it if you marry him. Stand your ground. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiancé? Please let us know.
Never marry someone who just wants to use you for your money. Don't date them either. I mean, unless the trade-off is worth it for you.
Am I the jerk for divorcing my wife for being a stay-at-home mom? I, 30 male, married my wife, 30 female, about 5 years ago. We'd been dating since high school. I loved how smart, ambitious, and driven she was. We bonded over academics and nerd stuff. We had both landed good jobs in the same city right after college. 3 years into marriage, we had our baby. We had decided on sending our kid to daycare after 6 months, but when 6 months were up, she refused to go to work and send our kid to daycare. Her argument was, if I picked up more work, we can afford a single-income household, and she will be saving us money being a stay-at-home parent, that it was better for our kid as well. I refused. Daycare is normal. If it was only me working, I would have to work way more hours, be exhausted, and not spend as much time with my kid. I said if she was scared about daycare, We can work in different shifts to stay home with our baby, like tag team. She refused, saying that does not work for her, and as a mom, she needs to be with her baby all the time. This caused a huge fight between us. She quit her job, she took care of baby during work hours, and wanted me to take care of cooking dinner on weekdays and cooking, cleaning, and baby care on weekends because stay-at-home moms deserve breaks too. This dynamic really made me resent her. I tried communicating many times. The load of bills and insane work hours, along with not being able to enjoy my time with my baby, all deeply upset me. When I was sure she was not going to listen to me, I filed for divorce. The court gave 50-50 custody. No alimony or child support since I proved it was her own decision to stay home, something I never agreed upon, and her career break was around a year only. I moved back in with my parents, and they have room for our baby too. Meanwhile, my ex-wife is struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. My baby stays with my mom when I work. My mom offered my ex the same, but she was so mad at me, she refused and enrolled our baby in a daycare. I refused to pay for it since she can just leave our kid with my mom. My ex-wife and her friends are calling me the jerk for divorcing her over being a stay-at-home mom and not providing any support. Am I the jerk? The comment section truly shows how crazy most of you are. Most of these "you're the jerk" comments calling me broke and asking me to man up. Others saying mom deserves to be with her baby and I'm the jerk for taking that away from them. My marriage was based on equality. I never wanted to be the sole breadwinner. And to everyone telling me mom staying home is best and the thing to do if you can afford it, I was clearly saying we could not. Daycare expense would have been 30% of my wife's salary, 15% of our joint income. I was not even demanding daycare. I offered my mom's help, part-time, different shifts, etc. Anything that would enable me to have quality time with my kid too. She refused that, turning me into an ATM and domestic help. To everyone saying I should have given her more time, each phase of childhood only stays for a little while. I missed over a year of my kid's life, big moments, smiles, and phases due to this arrangement. My wife did not care or sympathize. It was my duty to provide for her and her right to stay home with our kid. Further, I was responsible for fending for myself for food, washing dishes, and cooking dinner and cleanups every day. And on my only day off, the only day I could possibly spend time with my kid, I had to clean the house, cook all the meals, meal prep for the week, do laundry, mow the lawn, etc. I only got time with baby for about 6 hours, max 12 hours every week. I was working over 80 hours a week at an office and another 28 hours doing housework. What she did was take care of our baby. I'm not dissing her for that, just that I wanted time with our kid too. When I realized she would not listen to me at all, and I did not want to miss years of my kid's life, I filed for divorce. To everyone saying I'm taking advantage of my mother, I do not know how your family is. My parents love my kid. I'm my parents' only child, and my kid is their only grandkid. To those who say that I'm hurting my kid bringing in unknowns, my kid is having a great time being pampered by my mom and loves the time spent with me. To people who are asking what I won, time with my kid, memories with my kid, a relationship with my kid rather than just being an ATM. And to people who say I never loved my wife, I did, until I realized she did not love me or care about me, that she only cared about what she needed and wanted and treated me like an ATM and a slave. It was heartbreaking to realize, but it was not a relationship I wanted to continue with. She took away my time and my kid, and that is not something I can forgive easily. I would rather be a present dad with my kid. Not the jerk. If she would have had a conversation that took your feelings into account, you would still be married and the baby would have been in daycare. Now she has to work regardless and the baby is still in daycare. This is one of those mess around and find out scenarios. The courts decided custody and no child support, not you. Her decisions put her where she is right now, and that has nothing to do with you. Enjoy being able to spend more time with your kiddo. Congratulations as well on only having to financially support one person. Now you can have breathing room and enjoy your time with your baby. Everyone needs to be on the same page once kids are involved, and you clearly were not. You're not the jerk for not wanting to be the breadwinner, cook, cleaner, and weekend nanny. Obviously not. Was there supposed to be time in that for your well-deserved break? I'm sorry for your kid that this ended in divorce, but you tried to communicate your desires many times. Good luck to you. Bro, she unilaterally changed the whole nature of your relationship and put all the work on you without your agreeing. You're not the jerk. I would have divorced her too, and I wouldn't help her in the least. Best part is you forced her to do the thing she refused to, which led to your divorce in the first place. Love it. Daycare may be normal, as you say, but it's certainly not preferable to the care that a devoted mom provides. Only the two of you know how you would do on a single income. My wife and I sent the kids to daycare because we were convinced that we needed two incomes. Looking back now, with the benefit of hindsight, we would have been okay, and I wish the kids had had their mom for those early years. You're not the jerk for resenting the bait and switch, but breaking up the family over it seems a bit drastic. It's only a few years, then the kid goes off to school and your wife goes back to work. I can't see myself settling down with my pregnant girlfriend of 5 years. Am I the jerk? I, 29 male, have been in a relationship with my girlfriend, who's 28, for 5 years. We've had discussions about our future goals, including settling down, having kids, and other similar aspects. Initially, we were both on the same page. I believed she was the one for me. However, lately, I've been feeling a sense of boredom and monotony in our relationship. Our love life is great. She's a wonderful cook, and she's objectively attractive. There isn't anything inherently wrong in our relationship, but the thought of being stuck in a repetitive routine is becoming overwhelming for me. Additionally, 3 of her close friends are either engaged or married, and she keeps pressuring me about when we'll take that step. I'd been contemplating ending the relationship because I found it increasingly difficult to pretend that everything was fine. However, last week, she told me that she had taken 3 different pregnancy tests, all of which came back positive. To say that I was mortified would be an understatement. Despite my best efforts to conceal my reaction, she could tell that something was off. She asked me how I felt about the situation, and I must admit that my choice of words could have been better. I asked her if not having it was an option, which caught her off guard. The following 2 minutes were filled with an uncomfortable silence. After that, she got up and left the apartment. Since then, she hasn't spoken with me at all, and I assume she's considering breaking up with me. Meanwhile, her friends and family have been calling me names, but I've chosen to ignore them, as their opinions hold no significance to me since they aren't directly involved in the situation. Despite me feeling free and so much better now that we aren't together anymore, I still can't help but think I might have been the jerk. I'm reading everyone's comments. I'm using this as a time to self-reflect before meeting my girlfriend once again. I don't feel the need to reply, as I'm not sure if my reply is even warranted. This is my first reply to any of the comments, but I want to use this as a way to say that I appreciate everyone's replies. I understand I lack some empathy here. I'm just not in a stable place at the moment, but your comments are helping. Lack some empathy? Bro, self-reflect your butt to therapy. She deserves so much better than what you've shown in your posts and comments. I hope there's a positive update eventually, and we don't get another answer from OP that sounds like his campaign director wrote it for his press conference. Update. Firstly, it's important to note that I don't simply view my girlfriend on a surface level. I wanted to highlight the aspects that appear… This does sound like a press conference, doesn't it? I wanted to highlight the aspects that appear ideal in a relationship from an outsider's perspective. Regarding my statement that she is objectively attractive, let me clarify. Yes, I do find her attractive, and I always have. However, it's important to note that she has evolved over the years. She invests a significant amount of time and money into skincare, facials, and luxury brands. She enjoys enhancing her appearance, and I support her in that. In fact, I've personally gifted her various items related to her interests. Update. I attended therapy, and I realized my negative feelings when it came to monotony stemmed from a lot of factors, none relating to my actual relationship. For the sake of privacy and still coming to terms with it all, I won't share the factors. My ex-girlfriend and I had met a couple of times since. I grieve what could have been every now and then, but I acknowledge it was my fault that I'd lost her. We've decided to remain civil for our sake and for our future kid, and I feel she's doing much better now. Though we're not together anymore, I bring her whatever I'd heard pregnant women might need. Whether that be maternity outfits, compression socks, tea, all sorts of stuff. I love her, but I'm not good for her. We aren't meant to be together, and I will be there for her regardless. Her friends and family still don't like me, but I'm fine with that. I'm just doing what I can for the mother of my child and someone I care for. I saw a video recently which talked about how a lot of people are addicted to the highs and lows of a toxic relationship. When they're in a happy, peaceful relationship, they can't deal with the stability and it breaks them. This is what happened to OP. He had everything he could possibly want, and he left it because he didn't know how to handle a peaceful relationship. Am I the jerk for telling my coworker to buzz off after she said, "This is why you're single"? I, 32 female, work as an interpreter. One of my work colleagues, Hannah, who's in her late 30s, asked me the other day what my plans for the weekend were. I replied that I was going to the woods with my club to shoot some arrows and I had ballet class on Sunday. She was taken aback at that and asked me, "How many hubbies do you have?" She heard me speak about my classes before when I was asked about evening plans or when I said no to going to a pub after work. Despite my reply, she wouldn't drop it and wanted me to list all of the classes I do. So I told her that I took Italian classes, ballet beginners classes, archery, pan flute classes, and swimming. She asked, "What about your volunteering? Did you stop that?" I said no, I still do it twice a week. And that's when she said, "This is why you're single." That surprised me. I've never complained about being single. I'm quite content with that, so I don't know where that came from. I asked her about that, and she just said that I'm trying to relive my high school days, and no guy would want a woman that runs around in the woods with arrows and then bounces around in a tutu. Could I have been more polite? Sure, but she annoyed me. I told her to buzz off, and I left the room. Now she's telling everyone that I'm a jerk, and that she was only trying to give me advice because I'm immature and will be single forever if I don't get my act together. It's been almost a week now, and she's got some of the ladies on her side, and they're side-eyeing me. One even twirled like a ballerina, badly, behind my back as I was leaving the lunchroom. With so many people agreeing with her, I need to double-check if I was right to tell her what I did. Did I overreact? Was I the jerk in the situation? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but she's creating a hostile work environment. She doesn't get to dictate how you live your life, then get offended by you telling her off, in effect, to mind her own business. Yes, you told her to buzz off, but as aggressive as she was being, it doesn't sound like she would have taken anything less than you being blunt and saying what you said. You need to report this to your HR department or file a complaint about her creating hostility at work because of an exchange that she pushed. Then she assumed you didn't like being single. She's probably one of those people who thinks the whole darn world needs to pair up and have a romantic partner. And now she's having others demean you, tease, and mock you for living your life. That's messed up behavior, and she needs some serious consequences for starting this at work and continuing to stir the pot, and then bringing other coworkers in to stir it as well. Not the jerk. I'm honestly impressed. That's quite a list of activities, and I don't think I'd be able to dredge up the energy for that list. It sounds like you have a very full personal life where you meet new people and new friends who share some of your interests. I doubt the women agreeing with her have the full explanation of what preceded your comment. However, we're also missing something from your explanation because your post doesn't describe the level of anger or aggression you had behind the words themselves. But given the rude comments from her, buzz off sounds like an appropriate response. I'd be tempted to turn it on the other ladies. Ask the one who is twirling behind you if she'd like to see you in the ballet class had space for her to join. Ask the other ladies if they all met their partners in the pub after work or if they met them through hobbies. Not the jerk, but to be honest, she's totally right. No guys will want to date someone who does all these unnecessary activities. Do you happen to have multiple cats at home by any chance? Like, if you want to live your life doing all this goofy stuff, then do you. But if you ever decide it's time to find a good man, you'll have to cut way back on these silly childish activities and start being a bit more of a normal adult. Edit. To all you guys saying you would be happy with a quirky girl who does this kinds of stuff, I'm sure most of you are losers who play video games all the time and have never even had a girlfriend before. So of course you'd be happy with anyone who would give you a chance. I'm talking about men who actually have something to offer. You know, good jobs, our own place, that sort of thing. None of us would be interested in dating someone who does all this kind of stuff. As a normal, functioning adult, your entertainment should be once or twice a week and simply grabbing drinks with a friend after work or watching a game at someone else's house. This is called normality, and I'm not surprised at all that none of you seem to understand that. I, 28 female, refused to sign my marriage license at my wedding, and now I think I should leave him. For 6 years, I believed Fred and I were on the same page about what we wanted from one another in our future. We agreed, as in he's made this point as well, we didn't want to have kids ever, and I made it clear before and during wedding planning that I wasn't changing my last name, ever. He agreed to this. I'm an only child, while Fred has 3 brothers. My last name stops with me, while his family's last name will continue on with his 3 brothers, who are all married and they have kids. And with this all considered and points made on these facts, I believe there wasn't an issue because Fred agreed to it. I personally hate the tradition of taking on the husband's last name. In my personal opinion, it's just ridiculous. Even the thought of someone else's last name being attached to my hypothetical kids, if I do all 9 months of creating it and wrecking my body, just doesn't sit right with me. On top of that, why should I have to change all my registered IDs and documentation just because I'm a woman? It's not fair. So it's our wedding day, and Fred really pushed to have a ceremony in front of everyone where we'd sign our marriage license together. He was first to go, and when it was my turn, he had his hand placed really weirdly on the document. I told him to move his hand. We had an awkward, quiet battle about it, and when he finally did, I saw what he was hiding. It was his job to fill out all the forms for our license since he offered to do it for me, so I had one less thing to worry about, and he went behind my back and purposely filled it out so I would be taking his last name. Turns out in Florida, you can put your maiden name and the name you're changing it to on the form, and that's what I saw on the license, both names. We were at the clerk together with all of our needed IDs and documentation, and I was so stressed and exhausted I wasn't paying attention, and I trusted him, so I never thought once that in any world I would need to review what he filled out or to even review the license when we had it in hand. I refused to make a scene in front of all of our friends and family or fall into the pressure I was under, so I pretended to sign it, and the rest of the night was ruined for me. Everything I thought we agreed to and all my preferences he knew about and thought he respected were just destroyed. It was like my world was ending in what should have been the best day of my life. Fred is now a completely different person. He's all about tradition now, and how it's his right for me to take his last name, how it's embarrassing that his brother's wives didn't make this an issue for them, and how all his friends will give him crap if I don't change it. He keeps saying that it's not that big of a deal and I'm ruining our future. On top of that, he keeps bringing up the argument about if we have kids, saying, "We can't both have different last names, and they should take mine. We said we didn't want kids." I know it's technically the certificate that changes your last name, but to know this is what he's wanted all along, and that he was willing to try and pull one over on me is disgusting. I feel manipulated and heartbroken, and now he's put all the pressure on me to make a decision because time is running out on filing for our marriage certificate and he isn't changing his mind. I feel like I've wasted our guests' time, our and our family's money for the wedding, and now our future together because I let him fool me for 6 years and I never saw this happening to me. I feel like I've wasted my life and I'm backed into a corner with someone I don't even recognize anymore. Karen won't stop pushing her Etsy shop on our friends and family. My wife, 27 female, owns an Etsy shop where she sells homemade jewelry. She has some real talent, and the jewelry she sells is genuinely very nice and high quality. She gets a surprising amount of sales on there too and has great reviews. The issue is that everywhere we go, every conversation she has, she slips in something about her shop and tries to promote it. Talking to a friend, she'll casually mention a big sale she made or a custom order she got and not very subtly mention that she'll give her friend a coupon or something similar. Talking to our waiter, she'll mention that she has a pair of earrings on her shop that would complement their eyes. Talking to someone online, she'll somehow manage to say, "As the owner of a small business," she literally cannot have a conversation anywhere without trying to sell them her jewelry. The other day was a family member's birthday, and they were having a decently sized get-together with just other family members and a few close friends. I went with my wife, and she's a pretty social person, even outside of promoting her shop, so she was quickly making conversation with my family. Of course, not even 5 minutes later, she was showing someone the bracelet that she had on that she had made, and mentioning that she sells them and talking about how, since they were family, she would happily give them a 25% discount. She probably had the exact same conversation with at least 5 other people during the 2 hours that we were there. As soon as we left, I spoke to her and said she needs to quit doing that. I told her if people were actually interested, they would ask her about her store, but not every single person she talks to wants or needs to hear about her art. She got upset and said that she just wants to spread her product and doesn't see what she's doing wrong and hasn't spoken to me since. I feel like I'm the jerk, since I will admit I had a pretty harsh tone and I could have been a lot nicer during that conversation. Plus, I get that she's just trying to sell her products, even if it gets obnoxious. Am I the jerk? There's a middle ground here, but I'm going with you're the jerk because of your delivery. She has a right, and if she's really trying to make a go of the business, an obligation to promote herself. She chooses to do it informally, person to person, which is just fine. I can see, however, that the two of you probably need to have a no business hats night where the focus is on each other. Maybe bring that up gently after apologizing to her for being the jerk. Honestly, this is the best kind of advertising. You get a nice piece of jewelry and you think of the nice lady you met at the party who will give you a discount. Win-win. No, don't try to sell me something in casual conversation. It's a step away from an MLM pitch. I'll talk about your business and you can make it clear how to buy your stuff, but don't be telling me about the discounts you're offering. Not the jerk. She's doing it over and over. I sell on eBay and I have for 23 years. I make good money, but I never bring it up unless someone asks. Then I give a few vague responses. She needs to stop. There's a great divide between business and socializing. As someone who is a server, it made me slightly uncomfortable when people try to push that stuff on me. But as an artist, I get it. But it's kind of like the vegan who has to tell everyone that they're vegan. It's annoying. You should have been nicer, but she doesn't have to tell absolutely everyone. Not the jerk. My sister-in-law has done every pyramid scheme ever invented and is constantly trying to sell me her crap. When we announced we were getting married, she tried to sell me weight loss body wraps. When my cat died, she wanted me to buy a custom water bottle she was selling with the cat paw prints on it. My bridal party, she tried to sell me kitchen gadgets. I'm not saying Etsy is a pyramid scheme, but when every conversation is about selling things, it comes off as tone-deaf and insensitive. You're the jerk. If anything, you should be proud of your wife and her accomplishments. I run a small business as well, based on eBay, and you bet your butt I tell everybody I can about it. And my husband knows if he ever tried to stop me from promoting my business, he'd be sleeping in a hotel. You sound so bitter and jealous of your wife's success on Etsy. I'm guessing you work a job you hate where your boss treats you like the little man that you are. That queen deserves so much better than a crying man baby like you, and I hope she finds someone who will actually support her on her journey and not try to tear her down. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
If you're a friend or a family member who's constantly trying to sell stuff to me, you're not a friend or family member that I want around. Reminds me of those people on social media who message you trying to tell you they've missed you. Next thing you know, they're trying to sell you something.
Yeah, they're called Huns, if I remember correctly.
Hey, hun, you look so beautiful. I missed you so much. By the way, have you heard of these new essential oils? I've got a great sale going on right now.
I'm leaving my husband without telling him why. I found out that my husband was planning to have an affair with a woman from his company that works for another branch. He visits that branch twice a year, and she visits his twice a year. They've been flirting for 6 months, and they were going to hook up together last Friday when she was here. I sent my husband a picture of me in some new sleepwear about an hour before her plane landed, and he was supposed to pick her up. He had already told me he was working late and then going out with his colleagues for drinks and not to wait for him. I wrote to him that I was his dessert after the lobster pasta that I'm making. He loves lobster pasta. He was home within the hour. When we were together, he said he was glad that he chose to come home. Instead of working, you mean? I should hope so. Yeah, I mean, of course, he said. I don't have the energy to confront him or tell him that I know. I don't want to hear excuses and apologies. The lease is in his name because I moved into his apartment when we got married, and we still haven't found our home that we're saving for. So I don't need to worry about that. Our savings and joint accounts are easy to access and divide, and I can do that the day before I leave. I found a subcontract today for an apartment for 12 months. If I get picked, I can move October 1st already. Then I'll serve him the papers and tell him the reason is that I'm bored with our relationship and I've fallen out of love. I think it's better that way. When asked how she's sure of her husband's planning an affair or did she search his phone, it started with a lot of pop-up about hotels on our iPad. Combined with him being busy and texting more than usual, I became suspicious, so I went through his phone. They've been talking all summer long about meeting up and hooking up. She lives 3-hour plane ride away, so now I know why he was searching for hotels in our and her city. Update. I've now signed the lease. I'm so happy that I found it. I feel like I'm born again. I have felt nothing but pain and despair for weeks. Now I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm still resolute to just leave and not tell him the reason why. I think this is the only way I can cope with this pain without losing my mind or my dignity. Many asked how that would make me look. Honestly, I don't care. Those who love me unconditionally, and those who judge me, that's their problem. Update 2. I've been on high drive this weekend. No moving on Sundays, but I was fortunate to get the keys Thursday. I've been discreetly packing my clothes, and yesterday, Friday, the moving truck came and took all my stuff and my furniture that I bought to my new place. I changed my address to my parents because I don't want my husband to know my new address if he Googles it. When I was in my new apartment, it looked gloomy and so tiny. I just broke down crying. Like I've postponed my tears, and now I could finally feel safe to be vulnerable. Around dinner, my husband started bombarding my phone because I left him a note that I was done with our marriage and filed for divorce. My plan was to never speak to him again, but today, after a million messages and missed calls, I folded and answered him. He was very confused and in total panic, but I just kept saying that I wasn't in love with him anymore and that I was bored in our marriage. He was confused and begged me to come home and explain. Then he started trying to find other solutions. Maybe I was bored with my job or with our apartment. Maybe we could move and start anew somewhere else. I couldn't hold my tongue and just said, "Yeah, maybe we can move to the city where the other woman lives. That would be very convenient for you." He was silent for a second, then asked what I meant. "You know, because the main office is there and you have better chances to advance in your career." Silence again, till he said, "I don't care about my career now. I care about you. I love you and I can't lose you." He said he'd do anything to make me happy. I said the only thing he could do to make me happy was leave me alone and understand that it's over, because the sooner he realized it was over, the better. I hung up. I probably need a new phone number because I don't trust myself not answering him again. I was so disappointed in myself for talking to him when I decided that I wouldn't. My parents-in-law have called and wanted an explanation, and I just said that I wasn't in love anymore and wanted out. They're both confused. All in all, it's better than them knowing the real reasons. I'd rather have them confused than sorry for me, or worse, try to explain his behavior and ask me to forgive him. I'm way better this way. I don't think there's a need for lawyers. We don't own anything together, and we don't have kids. I've already taken my half of the savings, etc., and I never stood on the lease of his apartment. I see no reason to have lawyers. I already sent my divorce papers to court, and with or without his signature, I'll be divorced in 6 months if he signs too, in 1 to 2 years if he refuses to sign, and I submit a new application every 6 months. OP has more control than I do. I would have made it clear to everyone what he was up to. Hopefully, OP can move on without too much contact from the ex and his family. I think it's going to slowly eat her up, not getting this off her chest, and it's going to cause more issues for herself with people being confused on the why, like her in-laws. I commend her for having the courage to try to completely wall him off though. I would not have the chill to even attempt it. I would have just said, he knows why, he's just too ashamed to admit it, not my story to tell. Of course, when my ex cheated, I didn't tell anyone why we split. I didn't have to live with it for long. It became obvious when he married his affair partner immediately after the divorce. I kind of felt sorry for her. She was a young college student. I don't think she even knew he was married, and I'm not sure she ever figured out how close our divorce was to her marriage. Am I the jerk for telling the woman that I nanny for that her husband is cheating on her? I, 23 female, have been a nanny for this wonderful family for 3 years now. The family consists of mom, I'll call her A, dad, I'll call him B, and their one kid who I'll call C. I started when C was 1 month old, and at this point, they all feel like part of my family too. I decided to stick with them even after graduating from college instead of immediately pursuing a teaching career because I just love C so much. On top of that, they pay me very well. Last weekend, I was out with my boyfriend getting dinner. To my surprise, I saw B at the restaurant as well, with a woman who was certainly not A. I tried to assume the best, thinking maybe it was a relative of his or something like that, but then he leaned over and kissed this woman. I was shocked and just told my boyfriend we should go somewhere else, and I pulled him out of there quickly because I did not want B to see me. This happened Saturday of last week. I thought things through that night and over Sunday, and I really didn't know what to do. A is expecting another baby with B, and I tried putting myself in her shoes. I decided that if it were me, I'd want to know that my husband was seeing another woman, so I told her on Monday morning. B is never the one home in the morning when I show up. It's always A. I walked in, took a deep breath, and just explained what I had seen. I was hoping maybe she'd tell me that their relationship was open or they were already separating, but unfortunately, that's not what happened. She immediately had tears in her eyes and was just shaking her head in disbelief, and she kept asking me if I was sure that I had seen him. I told her yes, and she left to work still crying. When she got home later, she seemed pretty emotionless and was quite cold with me. I got a text later on that evening saying that her and C were going to stay with her parents for a week or two and that she wouldn't be needing me to nanny until they got back. I haven't received any further communication from her. I thought that I was right for telling her, but my mom and a few of my friends told me that I was wrong for sticking my nose in their business. My mom even said I'll probably end up losing my job now, and I'll admit that has me very stressed out. Now I feel like a jerk who blew up a marriage and stressed a pregnant woman out. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but you might want to start that teaching career now. You did the right thing, but you'll probably have to deal with the fallout too. Sometimes doing the right thing has negative consequences, but you sound like a good person, and keeping it to yourself would have negative consequences for your well-being. Not the jerk at all. You absolutely did the right thing, and for the right reasons. Her husband blew up the marriage, not you. You did not stick your nose in their business. He advertised his business in public, and you happened to see it. Thank goodness. Can you imagine being pregnant with your second child? You have that kid. Then a few years later it comes out that your husband was a dirtbag cheater? And then you find out that the nanny knew the whole time and didn't tell you? No way. You were right to do what you did. It doesn't sound like he was even trying to hide it. Yes, you may lose your job, especially if his income is significantly more than hers. She may not be able to afford it during and after the divorce. So don't assume there's anything personal involved here. Give her the time she noted before getting too concerned, but my advice is to sign up to substitute teach in your area in the meantime. Don't delay your future while you wait. Thank you for doing what you did. I wish someone would have done so for me back in the day. Not the jerk. I'm sure she wasn't trying to be cold with you. She was probably in shock and survival mode. The family may be disintegrating, so you may not have a nanny job anymore, but that's not your fault. You did the right thing. If I were the wife, I would want to be told. Not the jerk, but you are young and inexperienced. I've been a nanny for wealthy clients for the past 25 years. I've been a part of several different families that loved me as their own and vice versa. Out of all the families I've worked for, sadly, infidelity was part of each and every one. This is something that you learn to accept as normal when working with wealthy families. It will also be expected of you to never overstep this boundary and insert yourself into the family drama. In the end, you are there to provide them with a service, not tear their family apart. People can blame the husband all they want to, but you are the one who made the wife aware of what was going on. Your job is to be a nanny, not a private investigator or informant. If you ever get the chance to nanny for a wealthy family again, please do not make this mistake or you will again find yourself unemployed. I like to compare it to servants in a royal court. There will be all kinds of issues going on behind the scenes among the family, but as a servant, you need to stay out of it and do your job. You're there to assist the family, not tear it apart. Am I the jerk for giving my wife an ultimatum? I, 35 male, have been married to my wife, who's 37, for 7 years, and we were together another 3 before that. We had a daughter who is 5. On the outside, our marriage appears to be perfect. She and I own a nice house with a good school district, have a great kid, and both work full-time. Her job requires her to do some travel and wants her in the office 3 days a week. My job does not pay as well, but I work completely remote and spend a lot of time taking my daughter to soccer or doctor's appointments, as well as keeping up around the house. Before anyone asks, this is not a weight gain issue. I'm active and fit, and my wife is the same. For the past 4 or so years, my wife has shown basically no interest in our marriage and acts more like my roommate than partner. We basically have no romance or intimacy. When I say intimacy, I know some people jump to hooking up, but to me, intimacy means more acting like a couple. Hand-holding, kisses, cuddling, and obviously hooking up. None of those are really things my wife wants to do and makes it painfully obvious that she isn't interested. Before, she and I were very much an amazing couple. My wife also shows no interest in my life. She has forgotten important events like our anniversary and my birthday. Our last anniversary, she said she needed to cancel the dinner plans I made for the 2 of us because she had to work late on a Friday and travel for work the following week. I brought this up to my therapist, who suggested couples therapy and is willing to give some recommendations. I brought this up to my wife, who immediately shut it down, saying,
There's nothing wrong with me. I don't need therapy.
I've made multiple suggestions to her for how we can possibly improve our relationship. Family vacation?
Our daughter won't appreciate it.
I don't see what 5-year-old wouldn't want to go to the beach for a couple of days, but maybe I'm wrong. A romantic getaway for just her and I.
No, I'm too busy at work.
Or,
we can't just spend time together at home.
Taking our daughter on a bike ride and going out to lunch on a weekend.
I just want to relax.
So I gave up trying to initiate anything with her and recently began looking for an out. I watched my parents in a failing marriage for a decade and don't want to put my kid through that. I talked to a lawyer and got papers ready, and I can buy a condo in town to keep our daughter in the same school district with her friends, since I can't afford our house by myself. I recently confronted my wife when our daughter was at a playdate. I told her that I'm seriously considering leaving her since I feel as though I don't matter to her and our relationship is never a priority to her. I told her I have an exit plan, and if she doesn't make changes by the new year, I'm going to file for divorce in full custody. She and I got into a big fight where she basically told me I was manipulative and a jerk for blindsiding her like that. I told her that none of this would be an issue if she cared about us or at least pretended to. I told her I don't want our daughter to see how unhealthy our relationship is. All of this happened yesterday. So Reddit, am I the jerk for what I said to my wife and our argument after? Edit. I have brought up my concerns about our marriage to her multiple times. Things usually improve for a short while, but are quick back to the status quo in a week or two. On counseling and therapy. I've brought up the idea of therapy and that I didn't feel as though she was there for me at several points during the past couple of years. I've tried to get her to try at least one session with me, and I'm shot down every time. I've told her my feelings several times now, and each time she says she will try harder and maybe does it for a week or two, then things go back to how they were. Could she be having an affair? It's possible she's having an affair, but she does actually go out with her friends a lot. They usually go out and get dinner once a week. Either that, or she's meeting the guy at these restaurants. Personally, I don't believe that since I have friends in the area too, and someone might see her. Bills are paid from our joint bank account. Each of us also contributes money to a personal account that we would use for individual expenses, such as a night out. Majority of chores are done by me during the week. I can usually get away from work long enough to vacuum, do laundry, and basic stuff like that during the day. Bigger chores like car maintenance and lawn care are usually my or our weekend projects. Is she a bad mother? Why full custody? No, she's not a horrible mother. That part was definitely an overreaction on my part that I should not have said. After reading a lot of the replies and some helpful links someone posted that outline a mistreating relationship, I'll be speaking to the lawyer first thing tomorrow. I think it's time I did something for myself and my daughter. Update. It's been a crazy couple of weeks, unfortunately. My marriage is over, and after talking to my wife, I realize it has been for a long time. The day after my post, I began the divorce process with my lawyer. Everyone who said I was a jerk for saying I was going to get full custody, that is true. I was angry, frustrated, and said something I shouldn't have. We're going to split custody, with me having the weekdays and my wife having weekends. That said, everyone who said she was cheating, congratulations, you were right. She has been for around 4 years now, which is about the time that she started withdrawing from our marriage. She's been cheating with this coworker because she felt like she was not attractive after having a baby, and I was busy with work and childcare. More recently, she's begun to develop feelings for him and was considering leaving me for him, which she's now free to do. When I gave her the ultimatum, she was surprised that I was considering leaving her and thought I knew about her affair at the time. We sat our daughter down and explained that we're splitting up, but we both love her more than anything. My daughter was understandably upset and is having a tough time. I'm happy to look into therapy options for my daughter and told her that she can always tell me how she's feeling. This is the hardest part of everything so far. My wife and I are going to be geographically close. I'm going to be moving into a condo in early January, and my wife is going to move in with her coworker about 15 minutes away. With the sale of our house, I'll be able to pay off a large portion of my new home. According to the lawyer, we can have everything wrapped up by New Year's if it goes smoothly, but with the holidays, I'll be happy with early January. In the meantime, I'm going to start rebuilding my life. I did not get married with the intention of getting divorced, but here we are. I'm going to work on myself and my relationship with my daughter, starting with a vacation. I'm going to surprise her with a trip to Disney this winter. It will be expensive, but I really want to make her happy and create some happy memories. I'm going to miss her on the weekends. Maybe one day I'll explain this all to her when she's an appropriate age and we can talk about it more. In the meantime, I'm going to work on myself and try to be the best version of me that I can. I don't know what the future holds, but I guess I'll know eventually. Make sure you put you and your daughter first here. You don't owe your ex anything. Yeah, she and I have talked about basically making sure shared bills are paid. All of the communication is through our lawyers. All of her issues are on her now and not my problem. Did she admit to the affair or did you find out? I found some credit card statements that did not make sense, so I confronted her. According to her, and she's a liar, so who knows, the feelings developed a couple years ago and she was not sure how to address it. I personally don't care what she feels at this point. Am I the jerk for not paying for my brother and his family's vacation? I, 28 female, have an older brother, Adam, who's 30, and sister-in-law, Stephanie, who's 28. Every year, my family and I take a big trip, and time of year depends on everyone's schedules. This year, we collectively agreed for the second week in December. Those going on the trip include my husband Justin, who's 33, myself, our twin 2-year-olds, my parents, and my brother, sister-in-law, and their 3-year-old. My mom always makes all of the travel arrangements to ensure everyone is on the same flights. Kids sit with their parents, hotels are the same, etc. Everyone is on their own for getting to and from the airport at home, but my mom makes car arrangements from the destination airport to the hotel and hotel to airport when leaving. When my mom makes the arrangements, my husband and I always Zelle and Venmo my mom for our portion of flights and hotels. My brother and sister-in-law do the same thing. This year, everyone agreed to Disney World in Orlando. My mom, as usual, made all the reservations and whatnot about 2 months ago. My husband and I paid my mom our portion about a week after the reservations were made. Last night, Adam texted my husband asking if we had paid my parents yet. He said we had a while back. Adam then asked Justin if we could pay his family's portion of the trip. Not sure if everyone has been to Disney, but it's ridiculously expensive these days. Justin told him we couldn't swing it with our budget at the time. We both work full-time and make decent money, but we don't have that kind of money to just throw away. My brother and sister-in-law also both work full-time, and my nephew is not in daycare. My brother's mother-in-law watches him for free, while we pay for 2 kids in daycare. Adam responded with, "Well, okay then," and quit texting him. Cue to this morning, where I woke up to several texts from Adam calling Justin a jerk for not being a good brother and paying for their family. I told Adam I agreed with Justin, and we just can't swing the money for them in our budget. I apologized and told Adam he was out of line for calling Justin names and I wouldn't stand for it. Adam again asked me to pay and said it could be our Christmas present to him, my sister-in-law, and my nephew. If I had the spare money to do it that way, I would, but I don't have the ability to do that, so I can't. I told him I couldn't do it and told him to reach out to our parents about a payment plan or something. Adam called Justin and I jerks and said that we ruined their vacation. I'm kind of surprised by my brother's behavior, but are Justin and I the jerks here? Update. I'm still at work, but I took the advice of a few on here and reached out to both my mom and sister-in-law separately and let them know what Adam had done. My mom and Stephanie both confirmed their portion of the trip has already been paid and has been for months. Stephanie had no idea Adam had reached out to Justin and doesn't know why he would. She said she would rein him in and apologize to me for his request. For those asking why we planned this trip when my brother and sister-in-law couldn't afford it, Disney was their idea. After everyone checked on finances, we all agreed, and my mom started making arrangements within provided budgets at that point. Update 2. I'm sitting in the parking lot at work before I get my kids and head home, but I have some more info. I need to preface this by saying I dearly love my brother, but oh my goodness, I have no idea how this is my life right now. My sister-in-law talked to my brother. I didn't know until today they have separate checking accounts and a joint savings. Their own accounts are their fun money, but the joint account is used for household expenses. Well, Adam apparently ordered my sister-in-law a pair of diamond studs as a Christmas present and was charged 3 times for the same item from Tiffany's. Rather than dealing with the bank, he panicked and thought he could get money from Justin and I to make up for it. I feel bad for him, but literally laughing at the moment. More to come. Final update. So my brother and sister-in-law brought my husband and I dinner and to talk about what had happened the other day. My brother did in fact show up with bank statements confirming the triple charge from Tiffany's. However, when he explained what happened, it wasn't a mistake from Tiffany's, but rather a user error on his end. Adam is pretty impatient, and when the page did not automatically refresh, he hit the submit button a few times. So in fact, he ordered 3 pairs of earrings. He apologized to both Justin and I, as well as my sister-in-law. He also is meeting with our parents tomorrow to apologize to them in person. While I was incredibly upset with him, Justin and I both forgave him. My brother has since called Tiffany's to cancel the 2 purchases. I'm sad for my sister-in-law that it's no longer a surprise and told my brother if he manages to do this again to ask for help rather than making up lies. My Karen wife demands I cook special eggs for her after I've already finished cooking. Last weekend, I, 36 male, decided that I was going to make my family, my wife who's 35, and my kids who are 12, 11, and 9, a big breakfast spread as part of the lame, according to our oldest daughter, family time that we decided to have that day. The plan was to have breakfast together, watch a movie, have lunch, and play some games as a family before we release the kids from the clutches of the, again, lame family time. So anyway, I got up early, heated up the waffle iron and the huge stovetop skillet, and went to work making waffles, scrambled eggs, bacon, sausage, and hash browns. As I was finishing and the kids had plated up, my wife asked me to throw a couple of eggs over easy on for her. She's the only one in our family who can stand runny yolks. Neither I nor the kids will touch them, but she really likes them. I just told her, "Nah, I'm finishing up already. If you really want a couple of eggs your way and want to make them yourself, go for it. But I'm done." She responded,
You're already cooking. I'm in the mood for a couple of over-easy eggs. Why can't you just throw them on for me?
I refused, and it turned into way more of a quiet, bickering argument than it should have. It's been on my mind since, and on the one hand, I feel bad my wife just asked me for a small favor that wouldn't have been a big deal at all to fulfill. But on the other hand, I had made plenty of food already. My wife likes scrambled eggs too, just fine, and there was plenty of food for her to eat. Why did she need to go insisting on her special request? It was honestly a silly, petty fight, but nonetheless, I'm curious who people think was in the right. Edit. The top question asked if my wife and I routinely bicker this way. No, we don't. That's why things bothered me so much. Neither of us usually dig our heels in so much over something so minor, which is why I felt weird enough about this to ask strangers about it. Now, having said that, while there is some dissension, the prevailing opinion is that I was wrong. I accept that. I let the lazy mood I was in that morning take over when I should have just made my wife happy. But some people are making way too much out of this. My wife and I love each other and we love our kids and everything's good. We have a good family. Stop wishing bad things upon our marriage and family just because I got a little lazy one morning. I just wanted to know if I was in the wrong in this one situation, and apparently I was. I can accept that. You're the jerk, but more in a sad way. It's a small thing that would have meant a lot. Not the end of the world, but just one of those missed opportunities to give a tiny bit extra when asked. If you're honest with yourself, would she have done it for you if you had asked? It was a bid for connection from her to him. He turned it down because he felt like he had already done the connection thing already. In the psych community, there's starting to be really good research done on why couples break up, with the biggest reason being small bids for connection are rejected, thwarted, or otherwise ignored. It would have taken OP all of 2 minutes to cook wife's eggs, but in the long run, it could make all the difference between a happy couple and a divorced couple. OP, you're the jerk.
Hey, honey, go get me a beer from the fridge and give me the remote. This is a bid for connection, so you have to do it.
You're the jerk. Next time, make the eggs. Make the Chili by Pam Berg. A good friend of mine unexpectedly lost her husband. A couple of months later, we were going for a run together, chatting about nothing. She asked me what my dinner plans were. I told her my hubby wanted chili, but I didn't feel like stopping at the store. We ran on for a few more minutes when she quietly said, "Make the chili." It took me a few minutes to realize we were no longer talking about dinner. It was about going out of your way to do something for someone you love, because at any moment, they could unexpectedly be taken away from you. The next time someone you love wants you to go for a walk, watch some football, or play a board game, just put your phone down and give them your undivided attention. Just do it. Make the chili. If this were family time for me and I was cooking breakfast, I would have known how my spouse likes their eggs and made them some over easy while making scrambled. Just like when I cooked for my mom, I would pull some bacon out early because she liked it floppy, or remove some of the scrambled eggs early for my sister because I like mine rubberized. Because that's what people who care about someone else's needs or desires or preferences do. That's my idea of family time. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. The irony of family time, but not doing simple nice gestures for your spouse. You're the jerk for literally avoiding 1 to 2 minutes of cooking more eggs for your wife. Your wife. Not the jerk. I hate to be that guy, but if the roles were reversed, this comment section would look very different. You all would be telling OP, your husband has no right to demand you cook more eggs the way he likes them. If he wants extra food cooked a special way, tell him to do it himself, and get divorced while you're at it. You deserve so much better. I know I'll get downvoted to heck for pointing out the constant hypocrisy that we see here on Reddit, but at least I get to make my point.
How did I know that guy was gonna get hundreds of downvotes?
You're the jerk. God, I hope she leaves you. You remind me so much of my ex-husband, it's not even funny. I'd ask him to do the smallest things, and he'd act like it was the biggest chore in the world. His excuse was always that he had worked all day. He did construction, but honestly, he was pretty much a low-level grunt that just carried tools around for the men who were actually important. Sure, I was at home all day, but I was doing the real work raising our son. He'd get home and I'd ask him to run to the grocery store for some milk, and he'd flip out on me, asking why I couldn't have mentioned it to him before he left work. Stupid little things like this are why I left him and why I'm now living a comfortable life off the child support he pays me and the benefits I get from my crippling anxiety, which, yes, I have been diagnosed with by a real doctor. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for not making the extra eggs for his wife or not? Please let us know.
Would I make the eggs? The answer to that is if I felt like it.
Quit swimming so stupid. My grandson is copying you. It all starts with the most infernal of devices at the gym, the treadmill. See, a friend of mine who is basically a professional gym rat told me, "Dude bro guy, you gotta up your cardio game," and insists that a half an hour on a treadmill every time I hit the gym would be a good plan. Life pro tip: when someone addresses you as dude bro guy, seek a second opinion. I did the treadmill thing for a few weeks, and then I noticed anytime I went downhill, my knee was like, "Hey, you're a jerk, stop that," which was a problem, as I have a dog who likes to go on walks, and where I live, it's not precisely known for its flat terrain. This was an issue. Then it got worse. Now it was down hills and stairs. Deadlifts, squats, leg press, no problem. Slight downhill or stairs, oh no. Figuring knees aren't something one should ignore and hope it goes away with, I met with my doctor. She promptly referred me to physical therapy and not a knee brace like I was hoping. I met with the PT lady. She did an exam, said my quads are wonk and need work. I also discovered where my quads are. I was told to not do a lot with my legs at the gym other than bikes or swimming. All things being equal, I'll swim. I can swim, but I cannot swim well for very long. Turns out being out of breath and trying to get actual air in isn't as easy as it used to be, especially when some person is splashing water all around. Until my lungs catch up with the rest of me, I've adopted what I call the fatty twirl. 4 or 5 strokes of freestyle, roll onto my back, and then kick with my legs until I've got air in me. Then roll back for more and pray I haven't gotten close enough to the edge of the pool to smack my hand into it. I assume I'm doing well because physical therapy lady hasn't given me that "I'm disappointed in you" look, typically reserved for dentists when one has forgotten to floss. But that brings us to yesterday. Normally I go in the morning, mostly in the interests of avoiding the shrieking kids while I'm trying to do my thing. But work was nutty and I went later than I usually do. There were clumps of teens doing I don't even know what, but they mostly just snickered to each other and I minded my own business. Now, the dry part of my routine is done and it's pool time. I wound up taking a lap lane next to a grandmother in her 50s who was apparently trying to teach her grandkid, who was 10, tips on how to swim properly. I didn't hear a whole lot, seeing as when my ears weren't underwater, there was a fat guy splashing and making a bunch of noise. But I could tell the kid was splashing and coughing a lot, and this made Grandma upset. I didn't pay attention because it wasn't my business and there were lifeguards. I just wanted to get my laps done. Was on an extended period of back float time trying to catch my breath when I was ambushed by a pool noodle. Said noodle was applied directly to my face and not gently. While not painful, a noodle to the noggin is quite startling. I believe the first words out of my mouth were, "What the heck?" It was Grandma wielding the noodle, and she was giving me a very stern look.
Watch your language and stop doing that.
I asked Grandma what it was I was doing that led her to believe smacking me with a noodle was a good idea. Grandma informed me that I was swimming stupid and her grandson wanted to copy me, so I needed to stop. After I confirmed that was in fact why I was assaulted with a noodle, I suggested she might have better luck in the kids' part of the pool. You know, the one over there, far away from me. She said she was just fine here. I was the one causing the problem. I thanked her for her opinion and promptly resumed my swim. On my return trip, this woman stepped into my lane and grabbed my ankle. I don't know about the rest of you, but when I'm swimming and someone grabs my leg, instant panic response. I immediately started flailing and kicking wildly, trying to free myself. Grandma got herself a nice adrenaline kick right in her forearm. I came up gasping for air and ready to start swinging. I'm stopped by the soothing sounds of Grandma wailing about how I just hurt her. Edit, her arm was okay. She wound up with a nasty bruise and that was it. I caught her with the top of my foot. Pro tip, top of the foot is a bad place to land a kick with. Naturally, that's enough to get the lifeguards involved, none of whom were apparently paying attention before she started screaming. 2 of them are lifting Grandma out of the pool and trying to examine her arm while she's still wailing and flailing. A third is giving me static about kicking another guest in the pool. Well, they started to, until I pointed out where the kicking happened and her grandson was. Poor kid had frozen in place with an expression of abject horror. Once she connects the dots, she realizes I'm not the problem. I tell her I'm going to get changed, and then I'll identify myself to the front desk, because if I'm going to get interrogated, I'd prefer to be clothed. I did my thing, and by the time I'm showered and changed, there was a manager at the desk apologizing for what had gone on. They reviewed the tapes, and that woman's membership had been terminated, and they're very sorry, and please, please, please don't sue us. Best interrogation ever. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.